Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
New Seas Ahead by Peacelight24. Nakama means you never have to say goodbye or be alone, in which Monkey D. Lucy, future Pirate King, and Roronoa Zoro, future world's greatest swordsman, are dumb and everyone else is long-suffering. Or, things with them are always do or die, and love is just the same. Nakama ship, pining, Zorox Femme Lucy. Adios.
Come on, you said you'd train me, Zoro growls. I specifically said training would begin once you were recovered. Mihawk responds primly. Mihawk, as Zoro has discovered, is a lil bitch. It's been 2 weeks. I'm recovered, and he is, mostly. Well, okay, a normal person would still probably be pretty beat up, but Zoro's fine. He's fought on much worse than this. Yeah, the wounds under his himaki are refusing to close all the way because they ran out of anything resembling sanitary stitches the third time Perona caught him exercising without permission and they popped out, but it's, fine. It's not like it's still an open wound or anything, and his meditation techniques are pretty handy with stuff like this. I cannot train someone who only brings me youth, arrogance, and pride. A fully functioning body is required. Zoro glares at Mihawk over the dining table. Hawkeyes says nothing, just shakes the newspaper out once. Zoro tries not to look at it with too much curiosity. As expected, there hasn't been any word from any of his nakama. He's even started hoarding papers to try and look for clues or communications or something, since that seems like the type of thing Nami or Usopp or Robin would do. So far, nothing from the Straw Hats, but he has noticed that one couple seems to be using the classifieds to have an emotional affair from afar. Zoro's kind of surprised he figured that out, to be honest. He's been bored. Okay, in some ways, no news is good news. It means they're safe, because it would surely make the news if anyone turned up dead. It would be a point to the Marines, publicity-wise. Between the increase in violent piracy since Whitebeard's death and Sengoku's resignation as fleet admiral, public opinion of the Navy is low. Aokiji and Akainu are in a pissing match over leadership, and the smaller marine bases are all overwhelmed. Zoro doesn't really have an opinion on who should get the job either way. If he had to pick, it would be the ice guy. He doesn't seem as douchey as most Marines. He could have killed Lucy and Robin back on Long Rain, but he didn't. Aokiji should have been a wake-up call, in hindsight. I need to train, he insists. Stop re-injuring yourself, and perhaps you'll be able to do so. Zoro stabs his steak angrily. It makes him think of Lucy, stuffing her face while Sanji frantically refilled her plate until Nami put her foot down. At least teach me something, he grouses. His temper has been higher than usual lately. Given the complete lack of exercise, a slight inability to sleep, and the prickly company, he can kind of guess why. And, well, he misses Lucy. It's like that feeling people get when they try to take one stair too many and end up off balance. There's supposed to be a stair. There's supposed to be a Lucy. There isn't. Patience, perhaps. Zoro just growls lowly to himself. He's learned Mihawk does not often lose arguments. The closest he gets is changing his mind halfway through. He has a sharp tongue, and he's stubborn. Perona is hovering above her chair on his right. Zoro's not exactly sure how the eating thing works when her body is technically asleep in another room, but he's not about to ask. The ghost girl turns one beady eye on him, eyebrow raised, and asks shrilly, "What has you so determined to get training, anyway?" Lucy, laughing on the lawn deck as the wind tangles her hair. Lucy, screaming in horror, begging them to run, calling his name as Kuma's paw. None of your business, he snaps, like he always does when Perona asks a question he finds too personal. She's been more persistent about it recently than he would have expected. I would like to know as well, actually, Mihawk interjects smoothly, the yellow eyes locking on Zoro over the rim of the paper. Zoro glowers at him. Why does it matter? I want to train. Mihawk stares for another moment. Zoro glares him down. Instead he looks down at the paper again, apparently bored. You said you had a deadline. You should heal before you begin training, to reduce the risk of injury later. Such compounded wounds would limit the effectiveness of any teachings I could offer, and you would run the risk of learning it all incorrectly. Thusly, you would waste the next 2 years. The paper rustles as Mihawk turns the page. Zoro catches a picture of Garp, under a headline announcing his retirement to the Naval Academy. Did your previous instructors not teach you about this? Or are you just a poor student? Nah, sensei mentioned it. Zoro acquiesces. It's not like he'd fool anyone saying otherwise. Perona chokes a little on her water. You should be more repentant about that. Mihawk does not seem surprised. I thought it likely. The swordmasters in the northern half of East Blue are known to be both meticulous and traditional in their teachings. Zoro quirks an eyebrow. You can tell where I was trained? Mihawk looks bored. You're from East Blue. There are limited options, and while your Santoryu is a discipline unique to yourself, the roots of the style are easy to discern for anyone paying attention. It becomes more obvious the fewer swords you use. Which, really, only made sense. Zoro grew up in a dojo. He bases his moves off of what he sees, and the blades he works with. It's why his repertoire became so much more diverse upon entering the Grand Line. Masters from all over the world travel here, and Zoro has drawn his newer moves from their inspiration. When he first fought Mihawk, he'd never been outside East Blue, so his style was probably as pure as it will ever be. Finding its weak points is easy when you know what to look for, Mihawk adds cuttingly. That grabs Zoro's attention immediately. What did you say? Zoro demands. You generally make up for any weaknesses with speed, but that is not always possible. An example being our fight in East Blue. Mihawk sips his wine almost daintily. There are easy corrections you could make, though, which would overcome such deficiencies. What, was he trying to see if Zoro would beg? Like. Something other than boredom flickers in Mihawk's eyes, but it's gone far too quickly for Zoro to see. Oh? Are you willing to learn? Zoro frowns at him. Obviously, he wouldn't have asked if he didn't want to learn. That would just be stupid. When you aren't weaponizing rotational air currents, randomly varying the speed of your one or more of your blades would be useful as a distraction technique. It's only much later, when Zoro is just about to fall asleep, that he realizes Mihawk actually started training him over dinner. Bastard. Finally. He pulls the worn newspaper out from under his pillow, and looks at the solemn face of his captain. I'll get stronger, he promises again, much stronger. Lucy's face, rendered in black and white, says nothing in response. A sea of white and ash, magma dripping like blood from the sky. Lucy looks down, panicked, and sees a Vivre card flutter in the wind. She needs that card. No, don't. Light blazes before her. Ace's limbs spread in a protective wall between her and the attacker. Lucy rears back, surprised and terrified, but it's fine because Ace is fire now, and no one can touch. There's a hole in Ace's chest. No. The hot, molten thing in Lucy's gut releases, demanding Ace's life. The madman who impaled her brother just looks up, unimpressed. His blood is impure, just like yours, Lucy. Shut up, he's not. Ace lifts his eyes, somehow, dark irises burrowing into hers. I don't want to die, Lucy. So live, Ace, live. Lucy, the magma man's voice intones. Lucy. Ace tilts his head unnaturally, heedless of the hole in his chest. Lucy, wake up. Wake up. But, that's not Ace's voice. Lucy sits up, gasping. Easy. It was just a nightmare. A large warm hand rests on her back, holding her in place. She appreciates it. Thanks, really, Lucy chokes when her vision clears a bit. Not Marineford. Ruskina. Ace isn't dying, he's. Her breath shudders a bit, and she feels her face crack with the afam. It's okay to let it out. Rayleigh reminds her. He's kneeling in the frosty grass around her makeshift pillow, which gives Lucy a little privacy. You can always let it out. Lucy nods, pressing her forehead to her knees, and some tears track down her cheeks as she cries. Silently this time. Not the agonized wails she had before. Most of the time, Lucy is fine. Maybe a bit melancholy here and there, but fine. Genuinely cheerful, even. Training with Rayleigh is fun, and it's only been a week, but she feels stronger now than before. It's just seeing it in her dreams. Seeing it over and over again as that admiral impales her brother, brings all those emotions into sharp focus. But she has an island of respite. People to live for, who soothe all those jagged edges in her heart. She started a game with herself, where she imagines their reactions to certain things. Like what Nami would do if she saw what Lucy is wearing. Or what Usopp's reaction would be to the big monsters on the island. Or what Zoro would do if he saw her right now. First he'd sit next to her, offering physical contact if she wanted it. Maybe rest a hand on her shoulder. Then she'd wrap herself around his chest, and he'd pat her back and tangle his fingers in her hair and awkwardly ask what was wrong. He wouldn't have any idea of what to do with her, none at all, and she'd be comforted more by the fact that he tried than anything. A few tears slip out at the thought, but she smiles too. In her head she counts them, pressing her fingers into her legs for every name. Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Brook. Over and over again, until her breathing slows and her eyes are dry. After a few minutes, she's recovered enough to look up at Rayleigh, a large, silent rock beside her. "Sorry I woke you," she tells him. Rayleigh smiles. Not at all. He tilts his head and his glasses flash in the embers of the fire pit. "You called on your conqueror's haki in your sleep. We'll start training it a bit sooner than expected." He gives Lucy's shoulder a squeeze, then stands and walks over to his side of the fire pit. "Try going back to bed. We still have a few hours before dawn." Lucy doesn't feel the least bit tired. "I'm okay. You'll be tired tomorrow if you don't sleep now." Lucy knows Rayleigh is correct about that, but she needs a minute before sleeping again. "I gotta pee," she informs Rayleigh, who chuckles and doesn't even watch where she goes as she heads for the tree line. Rayleigh is good at not coddling her, which she supposes is impressive considering the trauma. Outside the glow of the firelight, the jungle of Ruskina is dark and silent. It's cold today. A frost somewhere between the typical weather of her own home in Fuchsia and the chill of Drum Island. There's no snow, but every blade of grass and leaf has a fine dusting of ice. Sanji would serve her and Robin and Nami hot chocolate and bicker with Zoro while Chopper insisted everyone wear winter coats to avoid illness. She feels warm inside, thinking of them. Lucy wipes the remaining tears from her eyes and smiles. Her nakama are amazing. Truly, she's always known that. She begged them all to come because she noticed. But they even have the ability to cheer her up from a distance. They're the best. Lucy likes Ruskina. It's an amazing place, and it changes so much it's like a new adventure every day. Rayleigh is a good teacher, and seems to understand just how badly she wants to get stronger. It's only been a couple of weeks, but so far he's lived up to the promise he made on the ship. The separation's going to be worth it in the end. If only she could get rid of the nightmares, this place would be great. They haven't happened every night. Just most nights. This is the first time she's used haki in her sleep though. Does that mean they're getting better or worse? It's hard, sometimes, to wake up and not feel sad. She misses Ace. Misses him desperately. She wants Ace to be sailing with Whitebeard and Marco and having adventures, just like she is. She's sad because of what he said at the end, how he could have had a whole life ahead of him to feel that love. But she's proud, too. Proud that Ace lived the way they always said they would. With abandon, without regret, pursuing their dreams. She has to do the same. She gets to do the same. After a few minutes, Lucy walks back to the campsite. Rayleigh is asleep under his cloak, or at least pretending to be. Lucy crawls under her blankets and revels in the leftover warmth. Grief, Lucy's found, comes in waves. Sometimes it's sharp and overwhelming, other times bitter, and often not quite present at all. But it's soothed with life, and with present joys. That's why she can laugh with Rayleigh and smile at the thought of her friends, scattered as they are across the globe. Today her life holds promise and adventure, and it will tomorrow, and the day after that, and the one after that. In 2 years, she'll gather her friends to her side again and they'll set sail for new seas and new adventures ahead. Lucy drops off to sleep to thoughts of laughter, camaraderie, and joy, and dreams of nothing. Nothing at all. When Zoro is finally recovered enough to train, he trains like he never has before, so hard his nakama would probably intervene if they saw him. The thought doesn't make him stop, doesn't even make him hesitate, it just fuels his drive. Before, he trained for satisfaction, for duty, for growth. He trained with a purpose, with the knowledge that his goals would only ever be achieved if he pushed himself to get there. He trained eagerly, vigorously, thoroughly, never neglecting a single aspect of his swordsmanship or growth. He was careful, and his progress was obvious as time went on. Now he trains for all those things, and much, much more. Every slash of his katana is in his mind's eye an attempt to cut Kuma down on Thriller Bark, to amputate Kizaru's leg. He imagines Lucy's limp body beneath Kuma's hands and launches his attacks to match. When he fails or messes up, he hears his nakama's screams in his head, and feels their absence keenly. In his mind's eye, Kuma doesn't push Lucy's pain from her body, but life itself. It is a desperate, fury-fueled way to train. His nakama would worry, even the cook. Mihawk sees it from the first morning he trains him. He doesn't even bat an eyelid, seems unsurprised, and says nothing. Zoro would have told him to piss off if he tried to rein him in. He would have told his nakama the same, but they aren't here to hear or scold. It's his fault if it's anybody's. Zoro trains and trains as the fight rages on and on and on inside him. Rayleigh ducks easily under her fist, and comes up connecting his hockey-covered knuckles to the underside of her jaw. Ack! Lucy flies up and back, lifted by her chin, straight into one of the strange, poisonous tree trunks, cratering it. She pushes herself up and out as quickly as possible, but Rayleigh is already there just when she's about to fall to touch the earth. Too slow, he chides cheerfully, and sends another fist towards her face. Lucy ducks left and, her head smashes back into the tree, rocked by hockey. Lucy ducks right, rolling out of the way, and, Rayleigh's left knee comes up, catching her in the sternum. But there's nowhere to go, so Lucy tries to gather armament hockey across her chest, fails, and is thrown feet first into the branches of the tree by the force of Rayleigh's kick. You used observation hockey that time. Splendid, the old man calls from the ground. Lucy scrabbles for the opening in the branches which will allow her to fall. Jump, back to earth. Lucy falls, and kind of lands on her feet. She looks up at all three Rayleighs with a vaguely concussed smile. Think so, she frowns, though, a little confused. I didn't really mean to though. Just sorta. She makes a swishing gesture with her hand. Happened. Rayleigh crouches a little so he can look her in the eye. That's the idea, in a way. We want you using it both consciously and unconsciously. For now, we're still trying's open. We'll work on control later. Rayleigh hums, dissatisfied. I think you have a concussion. Does your head hurt? Lucy starts to nod, and then starts to fall over. Well, lunch then. We'll let your devil fruits healing work on you a bit before trying anything else. We have been sparring all morning. Lucy brightens at the mention of food, and Rayleigh grins a bit. His massive hand settles on her shoulder and guides her to the little campfire in the center of the clearing. It's not the safe zone. That's on the other side of the island. Lucy suspects he caught her looking at the big white tree one too many times when missing her friends. Lucy knows they're getting stronger too, and that makes her selfish decision to postpone their meeting all right. It doesn't mean she doesn't want to see them though, or that she doesn't wish they were here. Rayleigh guides her to the campfire, and tosses one of the fillets on the fire. They caught a big tiger yesterday, and it had more than enough meat to feed her for a week. If the tiger reminded her of hunting with Ace and Sabo in the jungle, well, she didn't mention it to Rayleigh. Some of the grief memories have begun to feel happy again, the way they did with Sabo. No painkillers, I'm afraid, Rayleigh tells her genially. Pirates only use such things in dire straits. A pause. Also, I don't have them anyway. Lucy grins and focuses on chewing. Was it always so hard before? Down, up, down, up, down. Rayleigh tilts his head to the side. Lucy knows him well enough now to know he's using observation hockey to map out the island's predators. He's probably deciding on where to put the campsite tonight. Lucy puts half an effort towards sensing anything and finds it more difficult than usual. Rayleigh is, unquestionably, the weirdest adult Lucy has ever met. And that's saying something, because she's met both Granny Kokora and Buggy. The names bring back memories, and just like that, Lucy's thinking about her crew again. She hopes they're having fun, like she is. She hopes they aren't too mad at her. Lucy only realizes she's been staring moodily into the fire pit when Rayleigh seizes her attention by standing and moving toward a bed of flowers near the tree line. Ah, he calls mildly, now look, Lucy, and try to remember the shape of these, and the color. He pauses. You have a concussion so you might not remember later, but these are edible, if you're ever in a pinch. Don't taste very good, but they're better than nothing. Lucy nods, figuring Rayleigh is probably counting on telling her a few times anyway, and tries to remember. If she was Nami or Usopp or Robin, this wouldn't be a problem. Frankie's really smart too. Sanji would know already if they were edible. Melancholy settles on her a little, and stands to walk over to Rayleigh. Dwelling, she has discovered, is a bad habit she dislikes. Lucy loves thinking about her friends. They make her happy. It's not fair that they can make her sad, too. When she makes it to the flowers, Rayleigh motions to the stem. It's distinctive. See? It has all these white veins in it. Lucy's glad she has Rayleigh here. She's glad she's not alone. Not now, and not so long as her nakama are still breathing. The stones in Lucy's chest melt away. A daily task she finds gets easier with time, and she focuses on the lesson. A month after Zoro begins training in earnest, he's settled into a routine. Wake up. Bicker with Perona. Eat. Train for 12 hours. Eat and drink. Bicker more. Sleep. Repeat the next day. Admittedly, Zoro makes the whole affair more exhausting than necessary on purpose. It keeps him from thinking about shit. Like wondering how Lucy's doing. He thinks about Lucy a lot. It's not that he's avoiding thoughts of her, or anything. It's just hard. He misses her. More than he's ever missed anyone. There's this hollow place inside his chest that he's not sure what to do with, or how to fix, and he's forever thinking of things to say to her. He never realized how often she touched him, or how he's grown to crave the contact. The thing that makes it manageable is the promise that he'll see her again in 2 years. Less, now. Frankly, Zoro doesn't want to know how he would have reacted to news that she died. He probably, well, it wouldn't have been good. Mihawk does not spar with him, and never will, but he does watch from a distance as Zoro works on defeating the baboons. These are stronger than the ones he met initially, and Zoro is having a much easier time with them. This is possibly due to the fact that he's no longer in constant agony, but that's neither here nor there. Lucy looked pretty beat up in the photo. He wonders if she's fully healed yet. You are distracted, Mihawk rebukes from his observation point above. He likes perching on things so he can look down his nose at people easier. Shut up, I'm fine, Zoro growls, and the human droll on his left goes down as he disarms it. Zoro can tell Mihawk is sipping wine even without looking. Tell me, what is your captain like? Zoro is so surprised at the question the baboon on his right nearly decapitates him. He snaps into realization, and lashes out at the last moment, breaking the ape's wrist. You met her, he grunts, finally. Twice, Mihawk agrees, and both instances left me with an incomplete picture. Zoro growls, slashes upwards and dodges his opponent with a backflip. What's it to you? Mihawk's thick signet ring taps once against the glass before he answers. Titans battled at the War of the Best. People strong enough to create legends, if they hadn't already. Men hailed as gods. Those who weren't at such a caliber should have died instantly. Zoro backs up a step, and the baboons let him. They generally allow their opponents to rest if they wish, but never escape completely. Mihawk hasn't spoken about the war for almost 2 months. Last time Zoro asked for details, threats of bisection were exchanged. He doesn't want to miss this. At first, it was a chess game. Sengoku and Whitebeard were old enemies, and they knew each other too well. Neither entered the battle early on. Instead, they directed and strategized. Then, after the initial casualties had accrued, and Whitebeard's side taken a blow to morale, a ship fell from the sky, carrying 200 escapees from impelled down and your captain. Mihawk's eyes flick sharply to Zoro. In a baffling stroke of providence, luck, or fate, they managed to land in the one part of the bay which would not smash them all to smithereens. Despite the content of the speech, and the terror he's sure Lucy was feeling for Ace, Zoro can't quite suppress the urge to roll his eyes. She does that. Mihawk's expression doesn't change, but he does that thing where he gives off the impression of an emotion. This time it's incredulity. At any rate, 3 minutes after she impacted the bay, she had utterly changed the momentum of the war. Zoro's sure she did, but he's not exactly sure how. What do you mean? She prevented an attack on Whitebeard, challenged him for the position of Pirate King, and made what looked to be an alliance between equals with him. Mihawk's hat tilts toward the baboons. Then she led the charge to her brother, and firmly raised the morale and cohesion of the Whitebeard pirates. The baboons, now tired of waiting, spring forward with a war cry, and Zoro deflects as he speaks. She made friends with him, that's all. Does Straw Hat frequently befriend people like Whitebeard? Yes. I see. Out of the corner of his eye, Zoro sees Mihawk glance from under his hat at the position of Shisui as it arcs through the air. He forces himself to slow the blade, just a bit. Had the admirals not turned one of Whitebeard's crew against him, it is possible the war would have been won on that charge alone, with both Portgas d'Ace and Edward Newgate alive and well. Yeah, well, they aren't, Zoro grunts, lifting the crossed blades of the baboon behind him off his back. If Ace had lived, Zoro is pretty sure he'd be with Lucy and the rest of his nakama listening to Mihawk ramble uncharacteristically. He doesn't want to talk about Lucy. He especially doesn't want Mihawk to talk about Lucy. I met her on the battlefield. She was a middling fighter on that stage. Zoro's stomach clenches hotly. If Mihawk is the reason Lucy was covered in bandages, I didn't touch her. Her friends got in the way. The older man takes a sip of his wine. She was unstoppable. Unlikely as it was, she just kept getting closer. She rarely stopped to fight, but she took hits frequently. Her agility prevented any such blows from being fatal. When she met an opponent she could not face or escape. A stronger friend stepped between her and the opposition. Mihawk looks at him pointedly. Most pirates are strong-willed. They do not take direction well, and especially not from someone so much weaker than themselves. Zoro spins out of a flurry of blades with grace, and sends Mihawk a warning glance. Lucy isn't weak. On the contrary, Mihawk agrees unexpectedly. She was the most formidable individual on the battlefield. Let it not be said that Zoro in any way doubts Lucy, it's just, what? Your captain has the uncanny ability to make friends with the most powerful of people, and ally them to herself. I believe she does this unconsciously. She also has not fully developed her abilities, meaning her potential is unknown. She could grow to be stronger than even Whitebeard or Sengoku. A pause. And then there's the matter of her conqueror's haki. What's that? Zoro grunts, ducking under an axe. These enemies are a bit difficult sometimes because they learn so fast. I've told you about observation and armament haki. Conqueror's haki is the third type. It allows the user to impose his or her will on the weak-hearted and animals. It can't be learned. One either has it or one does not. A pause. Straw Hat Lucy used hers unconsciously to knock out nearly 300 Marines during the last surge of the battle, including the executioners who were about to kill her brother. Oh. Zoro disarms another baboon. Literally, and waits for the last three to approach. Then he remembers meeting Duval, how Lucy downed the yak without even touching it. How he and Sanji noticed at the time, but hadn't known what it was. He thinks of Rayleigh, somehow knocking out an auditorium without a word or even a movement. Sounds dangerous, Zoro grunts. It can be, to the weak-willed. I do not know if that was her first time using it or not, but it seemed a largely untrained skill. At any rate, that was the moment both Marines and pirates realized what I had. That Straw Hat Lucy was the most dangerous person there. The Marines ordered an all-out attack on her, demanding her head, and Whitebeard ordered his men behind her, protecting her as she freed her brother. It doesn't surprise Zoro that Lucy would end up the centerpiece of a battle, but the thought of her caught between two armies like that makes his stomach twist unpleasantly. Why? I told you Conqueror's haki cannot be learned. It is an exceedingly rare gift. One said to be a blessing from the gods, and the mark of a king. A glance at the setting sun. The Marines were afraid of her becoming the next pirate king, or the next Whitebeard, or even just a problem down the line, especially with her heritage as Dragon the Revolutionary's daughter, and Whitebeard more or less appointing her the herald of the next age when he threw his support behind her as he did. Zoro frowns, twists, and the baboon behind him is split from navel to shoulder. Lucy doesn't give a crap about stuff like that. She told everyone she was going to be Pirate King a long time ago. Zoro grumbles. I don't know why they expected any different. Mihawk's mouth curls up at the corner in a rare smile. He only does that when he's really entertained, indeed. At any rate, I find her a fascinating individual. I have seen her act on your behalf and on her brother's, and both occasions left me with the impression of a girl who is both strong-willed to the point of injury, and loyal to her ideals. Someone who cares deeply for those around her, and inspires similar depth of emotion within her contemporaries. Perhaps an individual even capable of bringing arrogant young men to humility for her sake. Mihawk's eyes light on Zoro again, sharp and perceptive. At any rate, I advise you to cease thinking about her quite so frequently in training, or you will not be able to keep up with her growth. With that, Mihawk slips over the edge of the concrete he was reclining on, and leaves Zoro alone among the agonized baboons. Fuck, Zoro thinks. Just, fuck. He wishes he could get the story of Marineford from Lucy herself, instead of Mihawk's truncated accounts. Between all the speculation in the news and the slow drip of detail from Mihawk, he keeps imagining worse and worse versions of the events she suffered. He wishes he could have been there, helped her himself. Zoro shoves his katana into his himaki with just a little more force than usual. They're still acting oddly. Like they're as upset over something as he is over Lucy. It's giving him a headache. Slowly, he makes his way toward the castle. One benefit to training 12 hours a day is general exhaustion. Sleep isn't something Zoro normally struggles to get, but sometimes. Well, sometimes he thinks about Lucy until the moon sets. Mihawk's right. He needs to get a grip on himself. It's not like him to obsess. He's scared for her. Has been since splitting up at Sabaody. It's like his mind can't process that she's safe somewhere, that she willingly. Okay, so he's mad at her. For making them stay away. For making him stay away. For doing so without consulting them first. For kissing him and then. It's not fair, being mad at her for this. He knows why she did it. Had he been there, Zoro would have supported it. Would have suggested, maybe, that the two of them train together, but he'll never admit to this, not ever. But he stared at that article nearly every minute he was on bedrest, hoping there would be something there asking Zoro, specifically, to go find her. Shameful and pathetic, yes, but he still did it because he couldn't quite believe she'd just disappear like she did. Zoro trudges up the massive concrete steps to the castle and sighs. He's being ridiculous. None of this is her fault. She made the right call. He's training under the best swordsman in the world to better support her and also to fulfill his own dream. He'll see her in approximately 21 months. He's getting stronger and it feels good. But sometimes he can still feel her lips on his skin like a brand, and he helplessly wonders what she meant by it if she could just choose to stay away all along. On Ruskina, there aren't many good places to take a bath. Half the natural water sources are filled with algae that secretes a poisonous film which can kill a person if he or she either ingests or touches it. The other half are generally in the areas the most dangerous animals live. Normally, Rayleigh forces her to try and use her own conqueror's haki to ward off any unwanted visitors from the bathing areas. But, occasionally, when he notices her rubbing her chest at the tight scar tissue and she's been doing well with training, he helps her ward them off so she can take a bath in relative peace. Rayleigh's so good he can do it from across the island. Today is one of those days. Lucis spent the last 38 hours awake and on the run, because Rayleigh decided it was about time she figured out how armament haki worked and the normal methods weren't working. Long story short, they played tag with boulders infused with haki. Lucy never got to be it. And then, because Rayleigh's a bastard, he refused to let her back into camp until she'd at least manifested armament haki at will. This meant Lucy spent the night fleeing various creatures that wanted to kill her. Lucy forgives him, though, because now, Lucy lifts her hand out of the water, inspecting the black bar spread across her knuckles. It's thin, and it's there. She wonders if Zoro and Sanji have started training their haki yet. She wonders if the others have. She'd bet Sanji is really good at observation haki. Zoro too, actually. With a last wink of effort, the metallic bar fizzes off her skin, and Lucis left looking at dry, swollen knuckles rough from the training. It's her left hand. Lucy turns it over, and examines the scar across her palm. It's been 4 months since she received it, and she can't look at it without thinking of Zoro. It healed into a pink, smooth line, a bit raised but nothing distracting. It's very unlike her other 2 scars. The one under her eye, and the one dealt across her chest. Jimbei told her, when she pressed, that it was Akainu who did it, and that her friend took the brunt of the attack. Lucy, in her catatonic state, had no natural defense against it, and so still ended up the worse off between them. She remembers wondering if she still had breasts when she woke up. The pain in her chest so terrible and diffuse she was unable to tell from feel alone. Part of her is glad she wasn't conscious for most of the initial healing. It was probably intolerable. As it happens, Lucy does still have her breasts, and for that she's grateful. Kitetsu at least had the decency to cut her cleanly, so the scar would heal nicely. Turns out magma does no such favors. The scar looks like a big X, diagonal lines crossing at her sternum, and stretching from the bottom of her ribcage to under her collarbones. The tissue healed unevenly in places, but it's mostly the smooth, angry red of a painful burn. It aches, sometimes. Like whatever Trafalgar did to save her life pulled the skin a bit too tight. It's ugly, and it's painful, but it's a small price to pay. Lucy's never been one for vanity, and certainly not to the point where she'd trade her life for it. She has much more important things to live for, and if needs must, die for. It's still a bit sensitive to touch, but Lucy traces it carefully with her fingertips, memorizing the ridges and releasing pressure points where she can. The scar is still novel enough that it feels strange to her fingers, and that seems weird, having her own body feel alien. Lucy doesn't think Zoro will care about her scars much. That would be stupid, and Zoro isn't that. She occasionally does wonder, though, if Zoro is currently spending a lot of time with another girl in any sort of romantic capacity. While she doesn't think Zoro's feelings would change easily, 2 years is a long time and she doesn't know what he feels for her, or if those feelings were really as reciprocal as she thought. She wonders, in darker moments that make her chest feel too tight and her stomach hot, if the hypothetical other girl is pretty, or at least prettier than her, and if Zoro prefers girls who are bustier, or girlier or less independent than Lucy. The warm water of the spring makes her aches melt a little, loosens the scar tissue. She feels drained, exhausted, and that's only partly because of the training. The spring is in a saltwater basin, and even though it helps her scar tissue heal, it drains her more than fresh water does. Lucy had to get used to bathing alone again. It still feels odd, being near water and knowing none of her nakama are around to catch her if she falls in. That Zoro isn't hovering behind her to fish her out of the sea. He does. Did it so often that Nami started making bets on it against unsuspecting new crew members. As it is, she's using a leather strap Rayleigh lent her. She's got it looped around a nearby stump to keep herself from falling in. Annoying, but necessary, since this water is deep enough to drown in, and Rayleigh has stated on more than one occasion that he refuses to rescue her from a bathtub, which, honestly, fair. That's fair. Pirate kings should be able to deal with bathtubs. With a sigh, Lucy tilts her head back on the rocks, throat exposed, and rubs her fingertips over the scar on her palm absent-mindedly. She remembers promising she would tell Zoro when it was healed. Use it as a marker for the novelty of Thriller Bark's trauma. She thought it wouldn't be more than a month before she had her answer as to how Zoro feels about her, whether he wants her the way she wants him. When they meet again, Lucy's going to tell him on the first chance she gets. The thing she's looking forward to the least for the next 21 months is not knowing his answer, and sitting on her own feelings. It's against her nature, waiting for what she wants like that. She usually acts on her desires as soon as she knows them. She waited in Thriller Bark, though, for good reasons, too. Zoro just seemed so off due to whatever happened, and she doesn't necessarily regret it, but, well, Lucy wishes it had turned out a bit differently. Lucy wishes a lot of things turned out differently. When she isn't having nightmares about Ace, his death and his tortured thank you, she sleeps dreamlessly. Before, she had really vivid, intense dreams. The kind that made her eager to go to sleep and see what kind of adventures her mind would conjure up. Now, when she closes her eyes, there's Ace, his blood, his death, his smile, or there's nothing, just oblivion. Lucy's not certain which scares her most anymore. Perona is a constant presence in Zoro's daily life at Kuraigana. She likes to bicker with him, like she's bored doing anything else, and watches him train from a distance a lot. She likes to insult him when he fucks something up. Mostly, Zoro finds her annoying, but not awful. Actually, some of her quirks remind him a little of his nakama. Her presence isn't the worst thing in the world. But Zoro is not, despite some people's assertions, a total idiot. He knows from the way Perona sometimes eyes him, from a few innuendos, that she's, well, interested. It's happened before, in various bars. He knows what it looks like when someone is looking for sex. Zoro's pretty sure Perona isn't interested in anything more than that, at least. Zoro has no interest in Perona at all. Pathetically, he can't even imagine holding interest for someone who isn't Lucy. And so he ignores it, hoping she'll get the hint. And mostly it seemed like she got it, until one evening 4 months into his training. Perona, determined as she usually is, basically just barges into his room and whines, "I want SX." Zoro, caught off guard, rears back in surprise. "What? I want SX. With you, now strip." Zoro raises a defensive hand, unconsciously prepared to push her back. "No." Perona pouts, then glares and stalks toward him by a boot-clad step. "Yes." Zoro backs up a little, his knees hitting his bed. "No." "Oh come on, I'm the only girl here, you must be frustrated." Jesus, that is none of your business." Perona stalks forward again, and Zoro scrambles backward to put the bed between them, knocking the pillow off in the process. "I'm frustrated," she tries, walking all the way up to the bed now, and Zoro plasters himself against the wall, edging to the left in order to make a break for the door. "Dear Lord, what is wrong with you?" he growls. Perona doesn't say anything though. In fact, she's not even looking at him at the moment. Instead, she's staring at his bed, where the pillow was, and where the picture of Lucy from a few months ago has been cut out and still rests. Slowly, Perona reaches out and picks it up, taking obvious care. "Oh," she says, quiet and a bit surprised. "Oh." Then she looks at him, frowning, and tips her head to the side. "That's why you asked Fancy Pants to train you, isn't it, for her?" Zoro says nothing. He doesn't have to. Perona nods, and then sets the picture down carefully where she picked it up. "I see." Then she grins at him, and their usual relationship resumes. Antagonistic friendship restored. "I think Fancy Pants has wine in the cellar. Want to go steal it?" "Oh God, being drunk right now sounds like a really, really good idea, yes." "Great. Let us never speak of this again." Perona may be a demon bitch perfectly manufactured to irritate him, but occasionally their impasse is quickly. Quicker than Zoro expected, at any rate. One day he looks up and 6 months have passed since Sabaody, finding Zoro stronger than he's ever been before. He still has a long way to go. According to Hawkeye, he's passably competent in the very basics, for an earthworm, of armament hockey, but his observation hockey is still equivalent to that of vermin, and has banned him from drinking, again, until he improves. Zoro hopes Mihawk never meets Robin. They'd like each other too much, the sneaky bitches. Anyway, things had more or less settled for Zoro in a cycle of listening to either Mihawk or Perona bitch at him, training until he's banned from picking up his swords again, eating massive amounts of food, and unfortunately not drinking, when one morning Zoro wakes to a newspaper dropping on his face. He bats it away on reflex, and glares at the offender. Perona, her hair coiled in fancy pigtails and wearing her usual black-on-black getup, raises an eyebrow at Zoro. "I wouldn't do that, if I were you," she coos. Zoro growls. "Why not? Your captain made the news again," Perona tells him, like it isn't the most important thing he's heard anyone say in months. "Where's the newspaper?" He scrabbles around, out of his bed and checking the floor when Perona shoves it under his nose. He snatches it out of her hand and rips it open. "Honestly, you're hopeless," she drones. "It's not even new news, it's special edition. 6 months after the war, the fallout and fates of the major participants." 6 months ago, the power differential between the Navy and organized pirate groups shifted drastically, and were forever altered with the deaths of Edward Newgate, the pirate Whitebeard, and Portgas D. Ace, Whitebeard's 2nd Division commander and son of Gold D. Roger. This edition is dedicated to analyzing the verifiable strokes of the battle, the aftermath of the war, and follow-ups on the most significant actors of the battle. The information in this paper has been verified via the Revolutionary Army, a group which believes the public can and should be trusted with the truth, as recalled by eyewitnesses and secret reports which have been liberated from the Navy. The Revolutionary Army takes all credit for the dispersal of this information, and as such the Daily Coup is not responsible for the potential sensitivity of this content. Special Edition, Zoro Whispers. The front page article is titled Who, When, Where, and Why, The Story of the War. It's accompanied by a picture of the Whitebeard fleet amassing in the harbor of Marineford. It's in black and white, But Zoro can practically feel the tension radiating off of the image. He can picture the pirates rallying under Whitebeard's flag, furious at the capture of their friend. It probably felt a lot like what raiding Eni's lobby felt like for the Straw Hats. Fancy Pants says it's the most accurate reporting he's seen on the war. He has no idea how Dragon did it, but it looks like the revolutionaries seized control of the papers for the day. The story next to it is a biography of Whitebeard. There's a picture of his body, still standing tall even in death, with holes gaping from his chest and stomach so large Zoro could crawl through them. Zoro didn't know the guy, but he thinks it's pretty sad he died. It seems like he was strong. Fighting him was probably fun, and Zoro never got a shot at it. The article underneath the top story is a thumbnail titled Portgas d'Ace and his pivotal role, which is next to an analysis of the fleet admiral, the admirals below him. Next to that is an update on the pissing match for fleet admiral between Akainu and Aokiji. After that is Monkey D. Lucy. The greatest surprise of the war, her past, her future, and her tragedy. They didn't. Zoro checks the page number. Lucy has 3 full-page spreads in the paper, on pages 3, 5, and 7. Madly, Zoro rips the paper to the correct page and they did. Jesus, it has subtitles. The reason it has so many pages though isn't because there's a lot of detail about her. It's because they have a truly ridiculous number of pictures of Lucy from the battle, like someone was following her the whole time. And all the photos are blown up disproportionately, so that the article itself only takes up a third of the page. The one at the top of Lucy's first page is Lucy, standing next to Whitebeard. Apparently it's on his ship. The caption tells him about her chaotic, but magnificent entrance to the battle, and that a picture of the ship falling can be seen on the next page. Lucy looks taller than she is, standing next to Whitebeard like that. It's an effect she sometimes has when doing something crazy. But the thing is, she already looks beat up. He can see her wearing bandages, and her clothes look clean but her face is bruised and she's got blood trickling out from under her hairline. She wasn't impelled down before Marineford, he remembers. She looks exhausted in the photo and she hasn't even started fighting yet. The first section is an article summarizing how she's affiliated with the Whitebeard pirates, and discusses various relationships observed throughout the battle. Mostly they talk about Whitebeard and his 1st Division commander, Marco the Phoenix. Zoro assumes this is the Flame Guide talking to Lucy in one of the smaller pictures surrounding it. She looks much worse for wear in that one. There's blood rivulets down her arm, and a great deal more ash and bruising littering her skin. The bottom half of the page discusses Lucy's heritage, and the circumstances which led her to become Ace's foster sister. There's a picture of Lucy leaping off of Whitebeard's ship, steam billowing from her shoulders. In the background of the picture there's something that could be a scaffold. Between them is the utter chaos of battle. The bottom quarter of the page, however, is filled by a picture of Lucy sprinting across the battlefield, presumably toward Ace. The photographer got a shot of her so close that he can see acid burns on her arms. Lucy's hair is blown back by her speed, and a grimace stretches her lips. Her eyes are blown wide in desperation, in a way Zoro has never seen before. The caption says it was taken on her initial charge to the scaffold, but her sandaled feet are already soaked in gore. But there's strength there too, present in the clenching of her fists, the steel in her jaw. There's determination and willpower. Had this been the only picture of the war, and had he been given no other information, Zoro would have bet his life, his dream, anything, that Lucy succeeded in whatever she set out to do. Zoro turns the page again, looking for the next part of the article. It's hard to miss. The top of the page is dominated by a picture of Lucy, soaking wet and carrying a mast, staring down the 3 admirals without a trace of fear. She's crouched in a horse stance, thighs flexing powerfully and her eyes blazing, even in the grainy black and white. Her cheeks and clothes are flecked with blood, and her wet hair arcs in mid-motion around her. Water still curling from touchdown. Ace strains against his chains above them, horror evident in the gash of his mouth while the fleet admiral stands impassively above the brewing clash, observing and not interfering. It's breathtaking. Zoro can feel the tension radiating off of Lucy, the absolute determination to move past the 3 greatest obstacles on the field. The look in her eye is terrible and beautiful, something he's not sure he's seen in her before. There's rage there, indignity, maybe even wrath, and Zoro can barely look away to track her injuries. I am the inexorable future. The article's subtitle reads, in all caps and a large, dominating font that takes up another inch of space in the paper. Zoro can certainly understand why they feel that way. The picture makes it look like she's declaring war on the government all over again, like there's no stopping her from marching straight through the Marines. The article speaks in highly speculative terms about Lucy and her relationship to the Navy. They discuss feuding with Garp that drove her to piracy in the first place, and whether she hates the institution on a personal level or not. It discusses, too, the extreme response the Navy seems to have toward her, and decide this is due to her father. The article also mentions a mysterious ability Lucy presented on the battlefield, but which, due to eyewitnesses having either poor memories of the event or refusing to speak on it, is poorly understood to anyone who wasn't there. Anyone with half a brain and who knows about Conqueror's Haki could probably figure out what the mysterious ability is, since it sent the Marines scurrying after her. But Zoro also heard it from Mihawk, so he might not be the best judge. At the bottom of the page there's a picture of Ace and Lucy, fighting back to back at the bottom of the scaffold. There's a fluidity to their movements that even in the photograph seems impressive. Fire blooms and whip like tendrils from Ace's hands, sweeping across incoming Marines, and Lucy flings a fist out to catch those on the other side. Zoro can picture the move in his head, knows exactly the way each Marine would fling away, and exactly how she would roll down so Ace could leap over her, switching opponents to confuse them. There are two identical grins on their faces, wide and fierce, black hair lifting from both their foreheads under the brims of their hats. The caption says it was taken right after Lucy freed Ace, and Sengoku destroyed the platform. They both look exhausted, dripping with blood from various places, but they look happy, joyous. Zoro moves to turn to the next page, and a perfectly manicured hand shoots out, blocking his way. Zoro rears back, growling at Perona. He forgot she was there, hands off. Perona lunges toward the paper, heedless. No, the next page is. She trails off. Zoro pauses. Listen, did you know the kid, Straw Hat's brother? I met him once, Zoro admits. Why, he pauses. Looks at Perona in horror. They didn't. Perona looks away. Zoro rips the newspaper open to page 7. There's a picture taking up nearly the whole top half of the page. Lucy is on her knees, blood soaking her clothes, her arms, her hands, as she holds her palms in front of her facing the sky as if in prayer, and Ace is lying before her on the stone, his forehead brushing Lucy's knee. His hands are at his sides and his palms up, with a hole through his white beard tattoo and ink black blood dribbling from his smiling lips. The expression on Lucy's face is. There are no words for that expression. None. Zoro never wants to see her wear it again. There's something fragile about it, like something precious has broken inside her, and her lips are forming Ace's name. He can tell even in the picture. Her brother's blood is splattered across her face, stains her clothes and skin, pulls around her knees and fills the grooves of the cobblestone beneath them. Tragedy. Just freed brother dies to save her during retreat, the subtitle reads. The article then explains that Akainu targeted both Ace and Lucy after a retreat was called. Ultimately, Ace took a blow meant for Lucy, and died as a result. Lucy, it reports, went catatonic and had to be carried from the battlefield by the former warlord Jimbei. Then she was taken in by Trafalgar Law and his crew, after suffering major injuries by the still in pursuit Akainu. There is, Zoro notices absently, no speculation this time that Lucy and Trafalgar are romantically involved. Zoro closes the paper and sets it on his bed. Perona hovers a few feet away from him, lips pursed and eyebrows pinched. Zoro stands, going for his swords. They're screaming in his head, and their horror echoes his own. But he doesn't want to, shouldn't, train like this, with so much rage. But rage at what? At the paper? At the Navy? At Ace? For dying? None of those. He can't rage at those. Rage is for people who don't have to control their lesser natures, rage. He's sad. He's frustrated and impotent. Too little too late. Maybe he could have done something 6 months ago, but he was nearly comatose at the time, because he wasn't strong enough to beat Kuma. Instead Zoro was useless and got everyone split up, and he's still angry about it. Zoro walks back over to the bed, fists clenching. He picks up the paper and reads the end of the article, folding it away from him so he doesn't have to see Lucy's face. The end or the beginning? The final subtitle reads. It describes Lucy's return to Marineford a month after the battle and her bizarre actions there. The article speculates that she was, perhaps, disbanding her crew as they have not been seen since. The other option, apparently, is that she was declaring herself the leader of a new age of pirates. Horseshit, that. The revolutionaries published this? Zoro asks. If so, Dragon's an even shittier father than he thought. Publicizing these pictures. Publicizing that picture. Fancy Pants thinks so, Perona confirms, voice quiet. Her father, he's the leader, right? Zoro doesn't say anything. Perona already knows. There's, more. Perona adds. Zoro looks up warily. Perona squirms a little and then just sighs. Turn to page 10. Zoro does, and he sees, the whole page is taken up by a picture of Ace, a pillar of magma through his chest and indomitable as he holds back Akainu from attacking. Lucy's leaning back, away from the two men, but even though Zoro can't see her face, the shot taken from behind her, it's clear she's realized what happened. Her fingers grasped toward Ace, her supporting hand pressed painfully against the stone. Ace's face is grimaced in agony, but his eyes are pinned to Lucy. Why publish that? Zoro asks hollowly. They already had a picture of his death, didn't they? They didn't need to have this, too. Dragon didn't, especially. Sharing the worst moment of Lucy's life like that is just. The article is an obituary, Perona explains. I don't know why they didn't just use the wanted poster. They detest the government, a low voice counters. Zoro looks up to see Mihawk leaning against his doorframe. They would likely find using one of their enforcement mechanisms unpalatable. Mihawk nods to the paper. The use of that particular photo, however, was probably an attempt to sway public opinion against Akainu. The paper in general is very sympathetic to your captain and Portgas. Damn well better be, considering she's Dragon's own damn daughter. In response to this, I've been called for a meeting at the naval headquarters. Do what you wish until I return. I expect your observational hockey to be vastly improved by then. Zoro nods, but doesn't look up when he leaves. Well, so that's a thing, Perona tries. That's an understatement. He's so glad to see a picture of Lucy. Guiltily glad. Even if they're out of date and horrible, they're still her photo, and in the pictures where she's not terrified or agonized, Lucy looks exactly how he remembers her. Strong. Fierce. Determined. Beautiful, right down to the scar under her eye and the blood on her knuckles. He's been thinking about her. More than he should be. More than he does their other friends. He wishes they parted on a more resolved note. This halfway in between thing is killing him. Part of him wants to be mad at her, and can't be anymore, especially not after seeing these pictures and the level of intensity this type of training requires. Nothing less than daily dedication would produce results, and that just isn't possible traveling Straw Hat style. A much larger part of Zoro wants to be mad at the world in general, but that doesn't really accomplish anything, and Zoro's never been one for letting Searstance control him. It's just fate. Zoro dreams about her sometimes. Usually they're quiet ones, where he sees her alone, off in the distance. Nothing in particular is wrong, it's just incongruous. Lucy likes attention. She never pulls away from Zoro. Sometimes in these dreams he tries to go to her and can't. Pathetically, he always wakes from those then hear her laugh. Perona lets out a heavy sigh. Look, were you guys in a fight or something? Zoro glances up from the paper, startled. What? No, we weren't. Kind of the opposite, actually. Then stop looking so mopey all the time when you think about her, Perona whines, exasperated. She's fine, you're fine, you'll see her in a year and a half. I do not mope, Zoro retorts, stung. If you're not moping you're pining, Perona snips back. Pining? Yes. Pining? Get over it already. She made a choice and you all decided to live with it? Zoro growls at her. Shut up, you don't know anything about it. Perona is unimpressed. Oh really? She turns primly, nose in the air, and hovers toward the door. Just accept the situation already, or you're going to be a mess when you do finally see her, you big dumb idiot. She pauses, and then whips around eyes wide. Wait, you haven't told her, have you? Zoro glares, sitting straighter to gain more height. What are you talking about? Perona's mouth drops open. That you're in love with her, you Neanderthal. Zoro snaps his mouth shut. Looks away. I'm not. Don't, Perona interrupts, flitting over to him. Don't finish that sentence. You might actually start to believe it, and then where would you be? Miserable and even more hopeless than usual, that's where. Perona gives a long, breathy sigh. Geez, and I thought you were dumb before. Then Perona looks at him with uncharacteristic seriousness and stares. Zoro, feeling more vulnerable than he usually does around Perona, glares back, defensive. For once, Perona doesn't say anything. She just sighs and then disappears through the door. It's weird, but sometimes silence is louder than it used to be. Zoro wakes that night in a cold sweat, dreaming horribly of Lucy lying dead on the cold stone of Marineford, eyes blank and blood soaking her clothes. Zoro lies awake until morning, unable and unwilling to sleep. He wasn't there. He wasn't there. She does this as a ritual every night before she goes to sleep. First, she holds out her hands, fingers splayed in front of her face. Then she presses each digit down, one at a time, until each one is associated with a name from her crew. She pictures each of their faces, and recalls a memory integral and characteristic of them and her relationship with each, and focuses until it feels real. For Zoro, it's his laugh when she's truly entertained him, one way or another. It's the way he thrills at a fight, his eyes sharp and deadly and alive. It's the way he looked at her sometimes, the one that made longing and desire burn in her until it was all she could do to refrain from jumping him. Then she rolls onto her side, so her back faces the fire pit, and imagines the warmth there is another body instead, one that smells like steel, sake, and blood. Thusly she falls asleep, hoping to dream once more. When Lucy thinks of the word father, nothing much comes to mind. She never had one, and if she occasionally wondered about it, and about her mother, not knowing didn't really bother her. Lucy had a Shanks, and a Gramps, and an Ace, and in one way or another all three of them filled roles in her life that some might consider fatherly. 8 months into her training on Ruskina, Lucy wonders if having a Rayleigh is similar to having a father. It's not an idea she's ever voiced aloud. Rayleigh isn't her father, and she doesn't really want him to be. Rayleigh's never tried, either, to fulfill that role. It isn't in either of their natures, and she's a bit old, really, to start adopting new father figures. Not quite innocent enough. Not after Marineford. She's not a child now, will never be again, but the way Rayleigh teaches and guides her makes her think that maybe paternal instincts don't necessarily cease once innocence is lost. And the thing is, having Rayleigh around all the time has made her aware, in a way she wasn't before, of certain deficiencies in her own childhood. She's never been the subject of an adult's undivided attention for so long before. It's not like there were no adults around when she was growing up. When she was really little, Makino took care of her when necessary, meaning, when Gramps wasn't around, but she was passed around the village a lot because Makino was so young at the time. Shanks was around, but he also wasn't. He usually only stayed in Fuchsia a day or two a week when he was wandering around East Blue those 2 years. Sometimes she wouldn't see him for a month or more at a time. As for Gramps, well, Lucy's not ready to talk about Gramps. Dayton was the closest thing to a parent she had. She and the rest of the bandits. And while Lucy is grateful for the childhood she had, and the chance to be Ace and Sabo's sister, well, a lot of what happened to them up to Sabo's death and the fire in Grade Terminal, like the thing with Porkami, wouldn't have happened if they had closer supervision. She doesn't blame Dayton, but she was always available in case of emergency, not usually anytime else. Rayleigh's not like that. Rayleigh is constantly tracking her progress, her growth, even if he sometimes does it from a distance for her own sake, because this training is the kind where having a safety net makes it pointless. She can sense the care that goes into it, the genuine desire to see her improve. For the past 8 months she's been his only priority. It was weird at first. Uncomfortable. Lucy's never been under such scrutiny before, never had the expectations and authority of another thrust at her so suddenly. Not that she actually recognized any authority or anything. She got used to it eventually though, used to the way she'd sometimes find an extra blanket draped over her in the morning, or Rayleigh's odd sense of humor, the stories he'd sometimes share. She liked it, eventually, enjoyed their friendship. What Lucy has never understood is why Rayleigh went to such lengths for her and her crew. He didn't have to fight Kizaru in Sabaody, she's glad he did. So glad, because Zoro would be dead right now if he hadn't, but he did. He didn't have to come find her and offer to train her, but he did. She thought it might be Shanks, at first. That Rayleigh was protecting them because he figured Shanks would want him to. But Rayleigh is a little too similar to her and Shanks for that kind of interference, and once she got to know him better, she ruled that idea out. Eventually, over dinner one night, she asked. "I'm grateful," she explained, emphatic. "It's just that I don't get it." Rayleigh looks at her over his glasses, glinting in the firelight. "It's not usually like you to ask why someone does things." "Well yeah, because she can usually figure it out on her own, or it's none of her business." "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to," she responds, meaning it. She's curious, but it's nothing she needs to know. She knows Rayleigh, that's enough. The old man takes another bite out of his waterfowl. "You remind me of someone. You and your whole crew, really. I suppose you could say I did it for nostalgia." Then Rayleigh smiles, and like always there's an edge of promise to it that's darker than the expression calls for. "But then you kids became my friends, and of course I couldn't turn my back on you then, could I?" Lucy smiles at him so hard her cheeks hurt. "Nope." Lucy's glad they understand each other. "Now, what were you saying about the giant ostrich that got the better of you? You tried to do something with your haki?" Lucy is really glad Rayleigh decided to help. There comes a day where Zoro realizes his desperation to grow stronger sometimes lifts into something purer, excitement, and the thrill of the battle. It's been a while since he's felt like that in a fight. Not since fighting the giant zombie Lucy on Thriller Bark, really. It makes sense. It was weirder, actually, that the feeling was missing for a while. He's always loved to fight. It's part of what makes him the swordsman he is. It's part of what he and Lucy share. It makes him feel absurdly guilty, enjoying himself so much. Lucy bends over backwards to avoid Rayleigh's haki-fueled kick, and spins her legs upwards to deliver a blow to his face. He sways out of the way, and Lucy pushes off the ground roughly, her body twisting in midair, and she uses the momentum to gain speed for her punch even as she rears back, forcing herself into Rayleigh's space, and thrusts a fist covered in armament haki at his sternum. It connects, but does no damage. Rayleigh's chest is covered in black, and her observation haki alerts her to an incoming threat, so she backflips away from him just in time to avoid a fist to the head. Distance isn't a problem for her, though, so she winds up, fusing her arm in haki and releases a furious blow toward Rayleigh. Frustratingly, the smile never leaves his face as he sways down, avoiding her blow easily. It hits the mountain behind him instead. The rock face cracks violently, a 30-meter crater spiraling from the blow and the fault lines exposing themselves far beyond that. Rayleigh looks at it and gives a low whistle. Then he takes advantage of her unguarded ribcage to knock her back while she's overextended from the punch. Lucy lands in a heap, her ribs on fire from Rayleigh's blow. "You know, if you could manage to hit me one of these days with a punch like that, I think you'd do real damage," he offers as Lucy hauls herself up to her elbows, panting in the sweltering heat. Lucy grins at Rayleigh, thrilled at the praise. "I will." So far she's only been able to hit Rayleigh at close range, when she moves faster than he can react, even when using observation haki. Unfortunately, this does not allow much time for wind-up, and she's been informed that during training, using the randomization tactic she did with Eneru is considered cheating and not actually useful to building her skills. She has his full blessing to be that creative on the battlefield though. Rayleigh offers her a hand and a smile as she heaves herself up. "Not if you don't get your spet rely on gear second all the time, you know. You'll be neglecting your basics that way." Lucy nods, pouting a little. When she'd explained the mechanics of gear second, Rayleigh had been one part horrified, one part impressed, and one part interested. He warned her that the use of her abilities that way was dangerous, especially to a person as young as Lucy, and that she should use it sparingly if possible. When she put up a fuss about not caring about that, he'd also told her that speeding up her abilities without gear second, her base speed, as Rayleigh called it, would allow her to improve the technique, as the doping merely expands her baseline energy output to its maximum potential. Raising the baseline raises the potential. He'd also started crying a little at the not caring part. He didn't explain why. Rayleigh looks at the mountain she nearly shattered, and he chuckles a bit. You know, you fight just like your grandpa. No restraint, either of you. Lucy freezes entirely and stares. Rayleigh raises an eyebrow at her, noticing the reaction. What? You knew I'd met him, right? And, yeah, she did. She knew Gramps chased Roger all over the world, so that meant he probably chased Rayleigh as well. And logically, that probably meant they'd fought a few times. What? She swallows. What did you think of him? Because much as she hates to admit it, she's still struggling with this. Gramps didn't free Ace himself, didn't prevent the execution from happening. Gramps let her hit him, let her get to Ace. She doesn't know how to deal with the conflict in his ideals, or the subsequent frustrations with her own. Rayleigh looks at her in sharp surprise. It's not the type of question she usually asks, because she likes to make opinions for herself. But it's been almost a year now and she still can't think about Gramps without feeling sick, so she needs to try something new. Garp. I didn't know him well personally. Roger understood him better. Liked him, even. He was a good Marine though. Didn't tolerate the mistreatment of prisoners or civilians by his crews. Stood up to his officers when he felt they were wrong. Did his own thing when he felt like it. Rayleigh shakes his head, and Lucy can see the memories filing themselves away in his head. Good fighter. Could stand toe-to-toe with Roger and not break a sweat. Huh. Sounds a little like Smokey, actually. She remembers Alabasta, remembers the rain that came from nowhere and the Marines Nami told her about, the ones that looked away. Rayleigh is studying her, a frown line of concern on his face. Why do you ask? You know him much better than I ever could? Lucy winces, recalling meals with Gramps and Ace and how he cried when Sabo died, how it felt to fall asleep on his shoulder at age 5, when she believed him to be the biggest, strongest man in the world, utterly infallible, how she maybe wanted to be like him but a pirate. She remembers him guarding the way to Ace, calling her by the Straw Hat moniker she's picked up thanks to Shanks' hat, and how it felt to have that familiarity ignored. Lucy has always felt that people should follow their own dreams. Gramps is the one that taught her that. It's why she can be friends with Marines like Smokey and Kobe and Gramps and still be a pirate. It's why she'd never begrudge her father for doing what his dreams require, or her grandfather for being gone so much of her childhood. But this, Gramps didn't, he didn't help Ace. Back at Marineford. And he kinda stopped me, but also kinda let me get to Ace too. And I'm not. I haven't. Lucy spreads her arms helplessly, not sure how to express what she means, not sure if she wants to. Gramps doesn't need her forgiveness. Not really. Gramps will continue to be Gramps and probably not see her for another 5 or so years. And then he'll be acting like nothing happened, probably. But she wants to stop feeling so furious at him, wants to stop feeling so sad when she thinks of him, and forgiveness can do that. Besides, it wasn't Gramps' job to save Ace. Not his or anyone else's. It was hers, and she failed. So why can't she put this behind her? Rayleigh seems to get it though, and nods sympathetically. I see. He reaches out and claps her on the shoulder, encouraging and firm. Everyone makes their own decisions, Lucy. Sometimes people clash on the important things. Lucy nods. I know, but she shakes her head, trying to find the words. But then why do I feel so upset? Rayleigh makes a low thinking noise. Well, I suppose because you love him, and you know he loved your brother, too. Lucy nods, and sniffs a little. Yeah. Rayleigh squeezes her shoulder again. Forgiveness comes in time, Lucy. I can't say I would have made the same decisions as Garp did, but, Rayleigh frowns, searching for the right words. Your grandfather has been a Marine for a long time. He believes in what they do. He may have felt honor-bound to uphold their orders, as he has his whole life. Rayleigh hesitates. I don't know the man well, but, at a certain point, defying one order, one ruling, on an issue so uncontroversial as the execution of a pirate, well, it would have felt like a wasted life. No? A wasted set of beliefs and values which have up until then carried him through. If a man gives that kind of thing up, then, well, what is he? Lucy grimaces at the wording, and shakes her head. Convictionless. Gramps always said that was the worst thing a person could be. Shanks said similar things. It always amused her that two people so different could be so alike in that respect. It doesn't seem so funny now. If you went into piracy only to discover it was solely about raping and pillaging, as the Marines would have it, what would you have done? Lucy shrugs, giving him a quizzical look. Been a pirate? But a better one. That doesn't sound like real pirates to me. Rayleigh's eyes dance behind his glasses and he chuckles. Yes, I think you would have. I think perhaps your grandfather made the same choice a long time ago, and finally ran into the challenge that would leave him either a good marine or a good man. I do not know if he fully chose either side. Maybe for Gramps, being a marine is like bearing a pirate flag. It's a mark of conviction. An ideal. A banner to sail under. A dream, and the constant pursuit of it. She gets why he can't betray that, even if she doesn't understand it. Still, if someone asked Lucy if she'd give up her dream for Ace, for Zoro, for any of her Nakama's lives, she'd say yes in a heartbeat. She doesn't know why Gramps didn't do the same for Ace when he's the one who taught her about selflessness and kindness and what it means to love in the first place. Maybe that's the issue. She never expected Gramps to go easy on her or Ace when they set out to sea, never expected him to make excuses for them. But maybe, somewhere deep down, she thought he'd sacrifice for them the way he always seemed to do for others. The feeling of betrayal isn't as sharp now as it was that day in Marineford, not even as sharp as it was a few months ago. But it's still there, lingering under the skin. Have you ever forgiven someone for something like this? She asks, looking up at Rayleigh carefully. The old man sighs. Yes, and I found forgiveness is not often something one regrets. He releases his shoulder and leans over to pick up his camping gear while Lucy does the same with her own pack. It sounds to me like you have a choice, Lucy. To forgive your grandfather, and one day meet him at ease, or to refrain, and one day spurn him. I do not know which choice is best. That's something you have to decide for yourself. Then Rayleigh turns to her, and smiles. Bearing a grudge seems very unlike you, however. Lucy glances at Rayleigh and shrugs. It usually is. It's one thing that her Nakama was always a bit confused about. Zoro figured it out eventually, especially after the Bellamy thing, but even he didn't always understand. She doesn't usually care when someone insults her, injures her, or anything else. If someone picks a fifth hurt her Nakama or her friends, she beats them up. Then she moves on, and forgets about it unless they come back, or remain a threat. A grudge usually doesn't enter the equation. She's never really been capable of long-term hate. But usually the people she loves don't wrong people they love like this. We'll camp under that ridge tonight, Rayleigh declares, pointing to a mountainous overhang about 3 miles away. Lucy nods, and follows him, still thinking. He sat with Ace, on the execution platform. She wonders if that was to comfort him or intimidate him, and she isn't sure she knows the answer. A year ago she did, but now. Lucy doesn't hate Gramps. She's just sad, very sad, and she doesn't know if it can be fixed. But Rayleigh's right. She can either forgive, or not. She can either accept that she, Gramps, and Ace all made choices, a lifetime's worth of choices, that led them to where they did, or she can't. Without Ace, the only remaining family she has outside her Nakama is Gramps. Does she really want to push him away? Especially since Lucy is all Gramps has now too. Gramps doesn't have Nakama either. Okay. To forgive, or not. Forgiveness brings acceptance and calm and maybe, in the future, more time with Gramps. No forgiveness means. Well, no forgiveness means nothing more can happen. Lucy's not sure if this is one of those things though, where an apology is necessary, like with Usopp. Gramps has never apologized to Lucy in her life. She doesn't want him to. She thinks it would be weird if he did. Do you always need an apology to forgive someone? She asks Rayleigh. He gives her a surprised look over his shoulder, gray eyes flashing with surprise and maybe a hint of old pain. No, sometimes forgiveness is just for you. Lucy wonders who Rayleigh had to forgive, but doesn't even think to ask. She wants Gramps in her life. She wanted Ace in her life too. But the thing is, she's accepted Ace's death. Accepted it months ago, and maybe she doesn't have to lose her Gramps along with him. Maybe she can, like, half forgive him. Yeah, like, half now, so she can stop being sad when thinking of him, and stop feeling upset over his choices, and half later, if they meet again and he offers an apology, so she can call him Gramps again and he can ruffle her hair like he used to. Okay, this is a good plan. Lucy waits for forgiveness. Waits some more. Lucy frowns. Truth be told, she's never had to work so hard at forgiving someone. She doesn't usually think it's necessary. She either beats someone up and forgets about them or it doesn't matter enough to bother her. But maybe it's something a little more formal than that, this time. It's okay, Gramps, she thinks. He probably can't hear, but that's alright for now. I don't get why you did it that way, but it's okay. I think I understand a little better now. I forgive you. And then something like acceptance washes over her, and it feels free. One day Rayleigh aims a fist at her chest, and in the midst of dodging, she suddenly isn't present anymore. She raises a hand to her eye, her left eye, and something is wrong. The blow slams into her, catches her on the ribs, and her lapse is forgotten. Somewhere a sea and sky away, red stains green hair and tanned skin and a steel gray eye closes forever. Lucy hasn't been keeping track of the days this month. It's intentional, because she knows which month this is, and so when Rayleigh pulls out a sake bottle and cups and puts them in front of her, she looks up in surprise. Rayleigh isn't a drinker. She hasn't seen him drink at all since meeting him in Shaki's bar. So it comes as a bit of a shock. When she looks into his eyes though, there's a kindly light there that makes her think it's not purely for recreation this time. It's an anniversary today, Rayleigh explains. It's been a year since the war. Lucy's stomach drops a little, even as she reaches out to accept the sake cup. She's healed since Ace's death, accepted it, but remembering it like this is still hard. But it's nice of Rayleigh. Kind of him. Thanks, she tells him, smiling. Rayleigh pours the liquor into the saucers, and sets it on a stump next to the fire. Lucy doesn't recognize the label, so it's probably not one of the cheap kinds Zoro usually gets. To great pirates, Rayleigh responds. They clink the glasses, and each take a sip. It's a little warm, but not bad, and the way it runs smoothly down her throat tells her it's more expensive than anything she's ever tried before. It's good, she tells him, meaning it. Zoro would know better, of course. Zoro would probably know the exact location it was distilled in and how long ago it was bottled. Boa-san left it last time the Kuja pirates left some food for us, upon my request. I thought a celebration would be in order. Lucy grins. Hancock was not pleased when Rayleigh explained that she wasn't allowed to be on the island while Lucy trained her hockey, even going so far as to allege Rayleigh had ulterior motives for wanting solitude on the island. Lucy trusted him though, and that was enough to get Hancock to back off. Lucy was grateful because even though she likes Hancock, she doesn't like Hancock the way Hancock insists she likes Lucy, and she's glad she doesn't have to deflect her advances every day. Lucy can only imagine what Hancock must have said to the request for alcohol. But if she forked it over anyway, well, that probably means she trusts Rayleigh now, which is good. Lucy tips the saucer back again. It reminds her of the last time she shared a cup of sake with someone. There's a soft pang of melancholy resonating with the fuzziness in her head as she remembers both of the boys she shared it with are gone. But she doesn't want to be sad. She doesn't need to be, not anymore. Ace and Sabo both wanted her to fulfill her dreams, move on to new seas ahead. They never wanted her to remain hung up on them, never wanted to hold her back. Rayleigh seems to sense her mood, and asks the one thing that will put a smile on her face every time. Tell me about your crew. Lucy grins wide. They're the best crew, she declares, meaning it. She can't wait to show them off to Shanks one day. He's going to have to agree. There's Sanji, he's my cook and he likes girls and kicking Zoro. And there's Chopper, my doctor, and he likes sweet things and making sure Zoro doesn't re-injure himself and also swearing. Robin is my archaeologist, and she's really smart and funny and she was, teaching me to read. Lucy frowns a little, but assures herself she'll see them soon, in a year, even, which means they've been apart for longer than it will take to reunite. Nami is my navigator, and she's a genius who can predict the weather really well. Frankie is my shipwright, and he's really smart and doesn't like pants, and he makes super cool robots and stuff. Also, he's a cyborg. Lucy grins a little broader at that, remembering people's usual reaction to Frankie. Brooke is my musician and he's a skeleton, and he's really polite and tells a lot of jokes about being undead. And Usopp is my liar and my sniper. He's also really smart and he's really good at inventing things. She swirls the remaining sake around in the saucer, a softer smile crossing her face. Zoro is my swordsman, and my first mate. He's cranky and loyal and drinks too much sake and he's going to be the world's greatest swordsman. Rayleigh raises an eyebrow. The green-haired kid with the bandages? Lucy nods, although her smile fractures a little at the thought of his injuries. She hopes he's recovered by now. She doubts he waited to heal before he started training full tilt. I don't like him, Rayleigh says gruffly, and it's not his usual tone. He's normally so cheerful, it surprises Lucy a bit. Really, I love him, she tells Rayleigh, and it feels a little strange that she's confessed that to two people now before the boy in question. The next person to hear it, she resolves, will be Zoro himself. Rayleigh sips from his own glass, looking more disgruntled than Lucy's but somehow still giving off the same air of unflappability that Lucy is so familiar with. 2 years is a long separation, he acknowledged. Are you nervous about seeing them again? Lucy smirks a little and shakes her head. Nah, they must have changed, including your swordsman. That's okay. I have too. Rayleigh smiles, agreeing. Ah, that's true. And it is true. She's still going to be Pirate King, but, impelled down, Marineford, Ace's death, the experience changed her. It had to. If it didn't, Lucy wouldn't be training with Rayleigh right now. She'd have gone off with her crew as soon as she could, and challenged the new world as they were. Her certainty in victory was broken. Her understanding of what victory takes has changed. She never wants to lose anyone again, she refuses to. She's sure everyone else has changed, too. Grown. That was the point, after all. She wonders how they've changed, though. She especially wonders how Zoro's changed. She's not worried though. She knows who Zoro is, she knows who they all are. We'll meet soon enough, Lucy decides, tipping the saucer back to finish the cup. And we'll fit together like we always did, and sail on to new seas ahead. Something about Rayleigh seems rather chagrined, but when he smiles there's pride in his eyes regardless. I think you will. Once, when Zoro was small, he punched another boy in the face. The other boy was from a wealthy family in the village, and everyone knew who he was. They fawned over his blonde hair and his cherubic cheeks soft with baby fat. His name was Daiki. Zoro was an orphan, living on the streets at the time, and everyone knew who he was. They greeted him and his odd, foreign, coloring with a mix of irritation, disgust, indifference, and sometimes pity. His name was Roranoa. Zoro and Daiki were the same age. Daiki had everything, and Zoro nothing. The only time Zoro ever interacted with him though, was the day Daiki stole Zoro's apple. The old woman with the apple cart sometimes gave him the half-rotten ones she couldn't sell, and it was the only food Zoro managed to scrounge in the previous day and a half. Daiki, having wandered away from his parents and being a rather sheltered only child, saw Zoro's apple, decided he was hungry, and shouted, "Gimme that." Zoro, completely unamused, responded with a disgusted, "Why would I do that?" Daiki, having had the advantage of proper nutrition, was much larger than Zoro, and pounced on him. Zoro, too weak to get him off, was pinned under the other boy. In the struggle, Daiki managed to wrest the apple out of Zoro's hand, and got off of him, uninterested in anything but the newly acquired fruit. Zoro scrambled up to his feet quickly, and latched onto Daiki's arm, trying to shake the apple loose. "Give that back." Daiki, having realized the apple was nearly inedible, ignored him and shouted, "Ew, it's rotten." Then he threw the apple in a manure pile. That's when Zoro punched him. He got a few good hits in too, before Daiki's parents showed up and pulled Zoro, half out of his mind and snarling, off their kid. "Honestly, what do you have to say for yourself?" Daiki's father raged at Zoro. "Why would you attack someone like that?" Zoro protested, seething. "Don't bother," Hideo, one of the village women inserted. She had sharp, bulging eyes that made Zoro feel like she could see inside him, and her skin was lined and translucent with age, her hair the color of steel. Despite her years she carried herself with rigid posture, a subtle hint of authority. It was said among the children that she knew all there was to know. Some children are just born under bad stars. It's their fate to have darkness live inside them. That is why they are alone. That is why we give them the no name. Roranoa. The no one name. A no one child. Rejected. One apart. One alone. Hideo sighed and agreed. "I understand, Madam Chio." Then he glared at Zoro. "Don't attack my son again." Then the villagers left, Daiki crying into his mother's skirts, and Zoro still in the street. He saw Madam Chio's flinty, judgmental face every night for weeks after the incident. That was the first time, to Zoro's recollection, that someone told him people could be born bad. Zoro always believed he was one of them. Ever since that day in the market, he was always aware of a creeping blackness inside him, wrapped around his heart too firmly to dislodge or escape. He thought he could feel it sometimes, writhing under his skin. His behavior reflected it, too. He had a temper, and never had an issue using violence to solve his problems. He was forever going just a step too far, acting a bit too aggressively, and people noticed. He didn't even realize that was unusual until one day when Sensei sat him down to explain that honor is more about restraint than satisfaction. As he got older, the impulses grew hotter, harder to control. Bloodlust, Sensei always said, would forever be Zoro's greatest enemy. Sensei advised constant control over himself, to let his mind rule, and not his heart. As Zoro went out into the world more, he realized why Sensei was always so concerned with his self-restraint, why he drilled it into Zoro from the moment he set foot in the dojo. Zoro wasn't necessarily a bad person, didn't go out of his way to harm people, but he wasn't good, either. He often went farther than others deemed necessary, when working as a bounty hunter. He would sever the limbs of thieves trying to shoot an innocent, or kill a rapist that fought back. It wasn't that Zoro did these things meaninglessly, or took pleasure in killing, it was just, those people were worth less than the ones they were trying to hurt. He never felt any guilt over it. Not even the first time. Most civilians, Zoro found, were not like him. They had an invisible moral code that didn't make much sense to Zoro, too contradictory and weak. And sometimes he crossed their boundaries. Even other bounty hunters didn't enjoy the thrill of the fight, enjoy hurting as much as Zoro did. It was part of why he never stayed in one place for long. He heard once that good men need no rules, and Zoro figures that's probably true. Zoro has a lot of them, stemming from the mandate Sensei once gave him, to live honorably, however that may be. Zoro figures Madame Chio was probably right about him. He was born with something dark inside. Sensei taught him how to control it though. And the thing is, Zoro is used to thinking of himself this way. Not evil, probably, but definitely not good, either. He's not like Chopper, or even the stupid cook. He lives somewhere in the shades of gray, and he's pretty fine with that. So long as he controls his inner darkness, nothing he regrets later will happen. But when he started traveling the Grand Line with Lucy, he discovered something. Darkness is useful. At least, Zoro's can be. He first started realizing other people could sense his bloodlust somewhere around Skypia. It was an unintentional intimidation tactic, and helped him win against that priest. Then came Ini's lobby, and the discovery of Asura. To be honest, he's still not exactly sure how it works. Just that it feeds off of his own bloodlust and fury, and that it takes commitment because it hurts. But it uses his own inner darkness, that part of himself which is cold and cruel and which even Lucy can't quite penetrate. The part where aggression and violence and all those lesser emotions live, and which Zoro has kept tightly sealed his whole life. And the thing is, it works. Asura is a powerful technique that increases his ability threefold. How can he not question the idea that it should never be touched? And now he's considering a technique that would probably make Sensei's head spin if he heard about it. This idea, it's playing with fire, in a way he usually doesn't. It's inspired, actually, by what Mihawk told him about Conqueror's Haki. How it's an intimidation tactic. How it can harmlessly take out enemies too weak to ever put up a fight. Zoro already knows how to use his aura to project his bloodlust, to war him, depending on his goals. What if he could do the same thing, just amplify it? One day, he tries it. He's cornered by an ape who's being a pest, but who isn't really a threat to Zoro. Not anymore. While preoccupied with a more skilled opponent, Zoro takes a deep breath and he pictures Lucy's face in that newspaper, kneeling before Ace's corpse, what her screams must have sounded like. He holds it in his mind while he lets the darkness build and grow until bloodlust tingles in his fingers and nearly makes his movements erratic with anticipation for revenge. He scrapes his heart for even the desire to shed blood, to cause pain, until it goes beyond Lucy's agony, or his rage on her behalf, until it's just him channeling every last shred of darkness Zoro has ever possessed. Then he pushes right into his aura, and amplifies it by Kitetsu's howls, and 4 of the apes around him whimper in terror, and the 3 on his level rear back in shock. The weaker ones lock up, paralyzed, and the stronger ones warily close ranks between them and Zoro, defensive. Zoro uses the opportunity to surprise them, sweeping under their feet with his heel, followed by Kitetsu. They go down easily, all 7 of them. Behind him, Mihawk shifts. That was not Conqueror's haki. Zoro slides his katana home. No, he agrees breathlessly. He's a little surprised it worked so well. Such a technique is difficult to control. Yes, it is. But Zoro's been doing it his whole life, yeah. Mihawk walks away without another word. Zoro stands in his circle of carnage and surveys the damage. Maybe this is why he has so much trouble admitting what he feels for Lucy. This, right here, with Zoro standing among 7 bodies cut down almost entirely by his own inner darkness, and that because he's the type of person willing to tap into that well inside him and channel it. Maybe it's this that holds him back, that reminds him quietly, when he thinks of Lucy, that he's an animal deep down, a creature of baser instincts, with no mercy at his core. That although she isn't perfectly good, she's certainly not bad. She has faults, sure, she can be selfish and childish and irreverent and careless. But she doesn't have this inside. There's no black hole in Lucy, no void, and some part of him that's still 5 years old and hungry in the streets and feeling something bad crawl under his skin doesn't want to change that about her. His name is Roronoa. It means alone. And now he's found friends, and a person he cares about more than his own dreams or life or anything else. But the thing is, Zoro has always been alone, and he doesn't know what to do with his darkness now that he isn't anymore. Kuraigana's thick-limbed trees and waxy leaves groan heavily in the wind, and provide no absolution. Zoro checks the date on the newspaper 3 times before going to Mihawk's liquor cabinet and pulling out 3 large bottles of sake. He fumbles it a bit, but nothing breaks. His depth perception is still off because he lost an eye last month, and while it doesn't bother him when he's training or fighting because his observation haki is fully engaged, he still hasn't mastered casual motion. Losing the eye didn't bother him much. Becoming clumsy is way more irritating. It's late, later than he'd normally be up. But Zoro doesn't want anyone around for this, doesn't want to talk to either Mihawk or Perona at the moment. A year ago today, Lucy told them all to get stronger. Now it's been a year, and there's still a year to go. If his nakama were here, at least one of them would make a joke about Zoro not losing any other body parts between now and then. Shitty Cook would definitely be one of them. Nami, probably. Usopp, if he was in the mood. Lucy would take pity on him while she laughed with the others. Tonight is 1 part sadness and 1 part reluctant joy. From here on out, the days until he sees his nakama again will never outnumber the days he spent apart from them. He wonders, like he often does when not thinking about his training or how to steal more of Mihawk's booze, how they're doing. He assumes well, if Lucy was confident enough to postpone their reunion like she did. He assumes they're doing the same as him. Getting strong enough to never hear news on their captain through a newspaper again. Zoro assumes that the others, upon receiving the news about Ace, were probably equally as shocked and horrified for Lucy. He bets they were all mind-numbingly worried about her. Zoro's reasonably certain Nami probably took over whatever country she was in at the time with protective rage alone, manipulating everyone there to suit her needs. He smirks and tips the first bottle of sake back across his lips. He has a hunch that everyone will have some pretty interesting stories to tell when they meet up again. Zoro will, of course, censor Mihawk out of his tale. His nakama would all understand what it meant for Zoro to do something like that. He doesn't regret it. Can't, really, when he's learned so much and still has a year to go. But it would be admitting just a bit too much. More importantly, Lucy would understand that he prioritized her over his own dreams, and she would feel horribly guilty about it. Zoro doesn't want her to feel guilty about it. Lucy is the best thing that's ever happened to him. He supposes, though, that if in some hypothetical universe she agreed to ask Rayleigh about the One Piece to further Zoro's ambitions, he would be pretty upset as well. It doesn't matter much, anyway. He's not going to tell anyone who he's been training under. The first bottle of sake runs dry. Zoro has an intensely high tolerance for alcohol, even the good stuff Mihawk buys, and so despite there being more than enough in the bottle to inebriate a person Lucy's size to the point of incapacitation, he just feels the beginnings of a buzz. He cracks open the second bottle. Mihawk is going to be mad at him tomorrow. Zoro does not give a shit. and will probably still think it's worth it when falling off a cliff or whatever insane training Mihawk decides to come up with as punishment. It's felt like the longest and the shortest year of his life. Longing makes the days stretch. Training makes time pass quickly, as the clock outpaces his growth. What scares him most, maybe, is how much he's gotten used to it, and used to the lack of bedlam around him. He's at a point where he's comfortable here. Even finds it relaxing, to some extent, when Perona isn't bothering him. He enjoys himself, like he's sure his nakama are, and it's not that he's guilty about that anymore, it's just. What if they don't want to come back? It's a stupid though. No one on the crew would ever dream of abandoning Lucy or each other like that. But, things change. It's not that he doubts his nakama, it's just people change. They grow and become better. Zoro knows it's happening to him. It's not so unreasonable to think one of his nakama would grow apart from them either. He's pretty sure the shitty cook wouldn't come back, if he somehow ended up on some crazy island full of women. The others, well, he's not sure what their tipping points would be. Everyone loves Lucy so deeply he doubts there would be much sway. Sanji is the easiest to distract, besides Lucy, but even he wouldn't easily leave them behind. Zoro wants them back. Zoro wants them back so badly he feels like he's suffocating sometimes. He's not sure when this happened. He used to be a loner, for Christ's sake, then Lucy came along. He would feel absurd about it if both Usopp and Nami hadn't independently mentioned doing the exact same thing, but he started to segment his life into a before Lucy and after Lucy timeline. It's hard not to, given how many changes she's wrought within him. Zoro's been dreaming about her every night for months now. Sometimes it's horrific. Images of Lucy dying on the battlefield are popular, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's, well, good. They'd be better if they didn't make him feel like the pervy cook though. He thinks about how she smiles, how she always has a second grin tucked in the corners of her mouth, how he wants, very much, to kiss her and pull her hips to his and. Zoro sucks down the last of the bottle, cutting himself off. This isn't helping. He's just tormenting himself. He just misses her, misses them, and he's afraid that. He's afraid he needs Lucy more than she ever needed him. It surely can't be possible that she would feel this way about him, this ache that never goes away, or the knowledge that simply standing beside her would complete him in this infinite, indescribable way. It's not like Lucy to need someone so terribly. It's not like him, either, but Lucy is the perpetual exception to everything in his life. The third bottle is gone before he starts to black out, and he finds a fourth one open in the morning. There's a place in Kuraigana that Zoro likes to go to, when he's been banned from training for the day. Neither Mihawk nor Perona ever bother him, and it's on a cliff by the sea. Zoro goes there to meditate, especially when he wants to be alone. As Zoro settles on a black basalt boulder resting precariously above the waves, he thinks it's good they've never seen the view, or the pests would never leave. The ocean spreads before him, here. Close to the island it looks as dark and murky as Kuraigana herself, but a few kilometers out it sparkles the radiant blue of the Grand Line. Kuma pushed him, apparently, almost the whole way back to the reverse mountain. Getting back to Sabodi in a few months is going to be a bitch. He's considered stopping by Crocus and Laboon, actually, to get an update on the whale for Brook, but figures it isn't his place. Zoro settles into a lotus position, and lays his katana across his lap. Normally he starts a meditation session by cleaning them, or repairing nicks in the metal, but armament hockey makes the latter unnecessary, and he always cleans them after use, anyway. They're still louder than they used to be, and they clamor for something. Zoro's not sure what, exactly. Zoro thought he might just be imagining it, that they aren't any different and he's just being ridiculous, but there's simply no way he could have used kitetsu like this when he first found the katana. They've been like this since Thriller Bark. Even Wado rings at a higher, more insistent tone than she used to. It's disorienting, sometimes, but usually it's not a distraction during training. Just like him, they seem to take pleasure in the exertion. He has a few theories as to why his katana are like this. He isn't sure how crazy any of them are, and he certainly hasn't mentioned it to Mihawk. It's funny, but Zoro thought the way he feels about Lucy would become both less confusing and easier to deal with over time. He thought the feelings might even fade with each day, without her constant chatter and incessant touching and laughter. As it turns out, that is not the case. it just got worse. It didn't help anything that his feelings for Lucy were tied up in his memories of Thriller Bark and Sabaody. Frustration toward himself and the world in general made it hard to think of himself as being suited to her. Confusion over that, and his inexperience at dealing with low self-confidence, make it hard to sort anything out. Above all, the ache of longing inside him is so strong and present that it warps almost everything else he feels toward her. Zoro expected that the separation would actually help him figure out what he feels for her, help him understand what he wants. But instead of offering clarity, there's just this hollowness and uncertainty inside when he thinks of it, accompanying the ache of longing. When he allows himself to think of her, though, there's fondness and awe and amusement and need, physical and emotional, that sometimes threatens to swallow him whole. She's the first thing he thinks of when he wakes, and the last thing he sees before falling asleep is an image of her face. He dreams of things that leave him frustrated in the morning, and sometimes he can't get the memory of how she felt in his arms on Skypia out of his head, or any other occasion where he's held her close. The feel of her skin sliding under his is a brand to his senses, and occasionally wind will come off the ocean and it smells just like. He's tired of fighting what he feels, and today, now that he finally beat that monkey with Hawkeye's sword, he can start to allow himself to think he's strong again. He still has a long way to go. There's still 10 months to go before he is supposed to meet Lucy and Sabaody, and beating the Humandrill is not the same as beating Mihawk. The top is still a peak away. But he could have held his own at Thriller Bark. Now, he could stop Kizaru's attack, could deal his own. It's not enough. Sabaody taught him that there's never a point where he has enough strength, that he must always strive for greater heights, but it does quell something that has held inside him for well over a year now. And maybe, with that wound stitched and healed, he can finally start to consider the girl that led him here. He loves her. He loves her. It's at once an epiphany, like a sunrise, and an easy reckoning, like the soft gasp of wind on the ocean. He has always known, deep down, that what he feels for her goes beyond loyalty or desire or friendship. Those things are there, but it's more than that, so much more. And yet, despite knowing that, it's still a shock to him that he's even capable of such feeling, that he, a person often called a demon and who mostly agrees with the label, should ever find someone that could make him feel like this. He loves her. He loves her. The relief at admitting it makes him nearly lightheaded. Kitetsu's howls crack sharply across his mind, and he puts a hand on the blade's hilt, hoping to quell it. To his surprise, the howling ceases, mellowing back into his mind as it usually does. "What, you jealous of her or something?" Zoro mumbles to the sword, sliding his thumb across the tightly bound cord. All three of his swords have a response to that, sharp and reproving. Then they sink back into harmony, quieter than they've been in, well, actually, it might be since Sabaody. They react to his emotional state, he's realized. Not often enough that there was any sort of consistency to it, but they seem oddly focused on Lucy. He supposes that could be why they've been so disgruntled for the past year or so. Zoro has not been at his happiest. Wado Ichimonji, Shisui, and Sandai Kitetsu. Mind, body, soul. "I'm better, now," he informs them. He thinks of chocolate-colored eyes and laughing freckles and a straw hat set over a mess of black hair. He thinks of a girl who can save countries with her fists if only she's willing to shed a little blood, and who deposed a god because he pissed her off. He thinks of a girl who can't help pushing people around her to comedic extremes of emotion, who drives him crazy half the time and doesn't listen and is brilliant, bold, and infuriating. He thinks of soft nights when the ocean is still and a girl who sits on the figurehead of her ship for hours, unmoving and silent before the moon and stars, her breath blooming against his collarbone. He loves that girl. There's no universe he can imagine where he doesn't. Zoro often feels Lucy carved a hole in his chest, a space reserved for her and no one else, and which is irrevocable, unchangeable. She has made him into a new person, altered him forever, and he knows there will never be a moment where he goes back to the way he used to be. It's why he couldn't let her die on Thriller Bark. It's why he refused to consider how he felt about her after Thriller Bark. It's why it took so long to admit it. He wasn't strong enough. He's still not strong enough. He has to protect her, has to be so strong no one can ever rip her away again, or he'll never be able to breathe when he next sees her. And even then, he doesn't know if she feels similarly to him. When they meet, there's no guarantee her feelings for him will be there too. Besides, she may have no interest in such relationships. He has no idea how she's healed from the trauma of the war, or if she has at all. He doesn't know how she's dealt with Ace's death. It's selfish, isn't it, to want her regardless? Lucy is selfish enough for the both of them. If he decides to be as well, then they're really screwed. Still, part of him wants to just tell her. It's the same reckless part that made him want to pin her against the Sunny's mast when they sparred. That always knew exactly how he felt about her, that recognized her as his without any true claim to the girl's affections, that heard an ultimatum and agreed and promised his dream to hers. That part of him wants to tell her the moment they meet again. The much larger, more reserved part of him cautions him to wait. He wants to see how Lucy is first, before he makes decision. He doesn't want to burden her if she doesn't share his feelings, or if she hasn't yet recovered from Ace's death. He wants to hold her, feel her heartbeat beneath his hands, rediscover that strange connection that lets them know exactly what the other is thinking or feeling. God, he wants to hold her. If he thought admitting he loves her would make it easier to be apart, he was mistaken. Sure, the tension there is gone. It's replaced with acceptance and warmth, and maybe a little giddy disbelief. But now the ache of their separation just feels sweeter, darker, more forlorn, consuming. The dark sea below him laughs and churns, unsympathetic. The next day, Mihawk glances at him a second too long as Zoro fends off hordes of humanrels. For Hawkeyes, this is the equivalent of staring with his mouth open. What? He demands, next time he gets a break. Something is different today. Mihawk intones lowly. It's a question in a statement. And it's weird, but for the last 14 months Zoro has been fighting with an edge of desperation that he just doesn't feel today. Today his determination is stronger, his focus greater, his mind settled. He moves with a certain ease he hasn't experienced in a while, and his katana hum in easy harmony. He's aware of why, of course. Lucy. He's in love with her, and he finally admitted it. The thought of her brings a certain, he doesn't want to say giddiness because it's too damn sappy, but there's a thrill in his chest when he thinks of her that's been missing for a while. A sharp, desperate ache, too, but an undeniable thrill. Zoro looks at Mihawk and shrugs. Mihawk says nothing, but his gaze becomes more calculating. Zoro doesn't back away from it, just glares him down. The older man is undaunted, but doesn't ask any more questions. Instead he turns away, sipping a glass of wine, and tosses one last remark over his shoulder. You'll be able to keep up with her now. For one horribly confusing moment, Zoro thinks Suina. Then he realizes it's not Kuina but Lucy, and how, exactly, did he know? Well, it's not like Zoro ever prided himself on subtlety anyway. Save me, Lucy. But Lucy has dreamt this enough to recognize it for what it is. A nightmare, not reality. Ace never begged her to save him. Ace was strong, always strong, and he only ever asked her to live. I can't, Ace. You're gone, she tells the dream. She still feels the terror of the moment, the way she felt at the time, but it has no hold on her anymore, and she can lay this demon to rest. The Admiral looks at Lucy with ice in his eyes. Carelessly, he shoves Ace to the ground and magma flows over his back. Ace doesn't scream though. Not even her nightmares can picture such a capitulation. The Admiral looms over Lucy, and she stares him down, undaunted. He can do nothing worse to her than he has already. The man smirks, his eyes fracturing in madness, and his left arm shoots to the side. Lucy follows the movement just in time to see. Zoro. No. Zoro is hunched over at the waist, the Admiral's magma fist speared through him. He's leaning over and clearly resisting the impulse to just grab the arm, yank it out, but he can't do so and keep his hands. Lucy sprints over to him unthinking and heedless of danger because. It's not real. Zoro wasn't dead. Zoro didn't die in Marineford. Zoro wasn't there. Thank God. Lucy starts awake, and finds herself on Ruskina once more. A dream. It was only a dream. That was new. She's never substituted anyone in Ace's death before. Lucy relaxes into her blanket and exhales slowly. Ruskina is in one of its moody seasons, as Rayleigh calls them, where it's really hot during the day and chilly at night, but somehow always humid. She's cold without the blanket, but she's also sweating. It's weird. The stars are out tonight though, and they twinkle cheerfully at her from the inky velvet of the sky. The moon hangs swollen above her, full to the brim with gentle light. Lucy wonders if any of her crew members are looking at it right now. She misses them. It gets both easier and harder the more time that passes. For one thing, she's getting closer, much closer, to seeing them all again. Only 9 months to go now, and it hasn't felt like long at all. And as time passes and she sees the fruits of her labor, sees herself growing stronger every day, Lucy knows without a doubt that she made the right decision. She'll be able to protect them now for sure. But on the other hand, well, she misses them. It's different from the way she misses Ace. In some ways that is easier to deal with because his fate was so definitive. She knows she will never see him again, and the way she misses him is sort of wistful and melancholy. She still thinks about him every day, and every time she gets that little bit stronger a voice in her head wonders whether it would have been enough to save him. That hurts, of course, but there's a rigidity to it. She's grown used to it. Her nakama, well, she's sure they're all alright, and that they're out there getting stronger, just like her. But that knowledge pulls at something in Lucy, something visceral and deep. It's an active kind of missing. It aches in an open, weeping way that missing Ace does not. It's a great deal worse when it comes to Zoro. Lucy's secretly afraid she can't remember what his laugh sounds like. His real one, not the one he uses when he snickers at Sanji or makes fun of her. She's not sure she can remember that either. She thinks about him all the time. Can't seem to get him out of her head. On better nights she dreams of him, and wonders what he's learned and how he's changed. She wonders if he still smells the same. Missing Zoro feels like missing a limb. She can't stop looking around for him sometimes, to tell him a joke or challenge him to a race of some kind, or see his reaction to something, or grab his hand, only to realize for the 1000th time that he isn't on the island, and never has been. It hurts all over again when that happens. As she expected, the worst part of this whole separation is the things left unsaid. She's going to have to tell him she loves him first thing when she sees him. Just walk up to him and say it. It's a bit nerve-wracking to consider. She doesn't know exactly how he felt about her back then. She might have misread things, or conflated them in her memory. He might not feel the same when they see each other again. Lucy frowns. At this point, she's not sure it matters. She'd rather tell him than keep it to herself. At any rate, she rubs her thumb across her scarred palm, counting the many things she wants to tell Zoro, how she wants to share all her adventures with him while they go have more. She huddles under the blankets and lets thoughts of him meld with the rhythm of the tide until she's lulled gently to sleep. She dreams of sun and sea and laughter, a pair of calloused hands settled on her hips and a broad chest behind her. "You're leaving?" Rayleigh doesn't look up from his careful packing. "This afternoon, actually, after lunch." If there's one thing Lucy can appreciate about Rayleigh, it is that he has a healthy respect for food. But the training, oh, I've taught you the basics, Rayleigh tells her easily. The rest is up to you. Lucy is very skeptical about that. But hockey is something that only grows with experience, Rayleigh counters, and he turns to her and smiles. "If I'm here, you'll never grow further, and the next few months would be a waste." And that was unacceptable. That made her separation from her crew worthless, and that, she can't deal with that. "I don't think I'm that good though, my observation hockey will grow with time. You've gotten to the point where you understand your own shortcomings, and you know what you must do to improve on them. That is all I can teach you." And that's a good thing, isn't it? It means she's grown. It means, thus far, she's been successful. That she has 6 months until her reunion with the most important people in the world. And she has 6 months to get strong enough to protect them, always. She's going to miss him though. Rayleigh is Rayleigh. She doesn't have a better word for him than that. He's taught her and was there for her in a way no one outside of her nakama has ever been before. And she hates when people leave. "You've taught me a lot," she tells him, oddly shy. "Thank you." "Ah, my dear Lucy," Rayleigh responds warmly, eyes crinkling. "It was nothing at all." It's been 3 months since Rayleigh left, and Lucy is alone. Lucy's never been alone. Not like this. She trains, mostly, using her observation hockey to track and subdue the most powerful beasts on the island. There's still a few she has to fight before she can impose her conqueror's hockey on them, and every time she comes away stronger. Muscles trembling in exertion and lungs gasping for air, but a smile on her face. Training feels good. Winning feels good, and hard-won battles feel like growth, and grasping her dreams with 2 bloody fists. Lucy talks to no one except the animals that endear themselves to her out of fear. Lucy doesn't hunt them, because she's made friends with them and she hopes they'll stop looking at her like she's going to eat them before she leaves. She'd rather they follow her because they like her. They don't seem to be warming up to her anytime soon, though. It's lonely. The loneliest she's ever been. She gets through it by having adventures, and imagining what her nakama would say, how they'd react to the funny orange fruit she discovered or the time she rode a giant bird so high Ruskina disappeared into the blue of the sea, and she thought she could see the tempestuous waters of the Grand Line in the distance. She can't cook meat without thinking of Sanji. She can't pass the ruins without thinking of Robin. Lucy wonders, sometimes, if she could take a picture of it for the archaeologist to see. Lucy has banned herself from sleeping under the safe tree. If she doesn't have to keep a watchvation hockey, she thinks too much to rest. Her nightmares get worse, with Rayleigh gone. They aren't simple memories now, just dreams surrounding images of her crew screaming, bleeding, dying in Ace's place, dying 1,000 different ways. Robin is dragged beyond the gates of justice. Usopp collapses in Alabasta and never comes back in Water 7. Brook runs away across the waves and Zoro dies every night in her dreams, by Mihawk's hands, by Akainu's, in Thriller Bark. Thriller Bark is the worst, maybe because those memories are so real, and she knows how close it was. She thinks about her nakama constantly, even as she conquers the island and its inhabitants. Zoro, however, never leaves her mind. It's funny. By now she's spent much longer apart from her crew than she ever spent with them, and still they feel, lodged in her heart, permanent and unmovable. Zoro, especially, feels like the constant hole in some of her heart, present and heavy and so tangible she can almost feel him even separated as they are. It's almost scary how much she loves him. It would be if she hadn't embraced it so completely. The longing grows both more intense and easier to bear, as the days to their reunion count down. She's so eager for it she can't breathe sometimes. She's so nervous and elated at the prospect that she gets butterflies in her stomach. Her nightly ritual, counting her nakama on her fingers in the firelight, and falling asleep imaging Zoro's arms around her, his chest pressed against her back, gets more complicated. She holds one-sided, whispered conversations with him, imagining his responses, the way his eyes would crinkle when he laughed, the way his body would curve against hers. "I miss you," she tells him every night. "I love you." There's no one there to hear but the animals, and she can't tell if it helps or hurts sometimes. It's weird, collecting his stuff from his room after 2 years. He doesn't have much, just an extra change of clothes, a t-shirt, and his katana. And yet without those things draped over the nearest available chair by the door, the room looks weirdly barren. "Come on, cranky pants," Perona greets from the doorway, "we better get going." Zoro nods, and hefts the small pack with his clothes over his shoulder. Yeah. He and Mihawk already said goodbye yesterday. Or rather, Zoro said, "See ya," and Mihawk went on a long and pretentious rant about how he has to grow yet stronger to kill him, and if they meet again before he's ready that Mihawk will show no mercy. It's about what he expected from Mihawk, to be honest. With one last glance around his room, it's still weird, calling it that. Zoro turns and follows Perona out of the castle. She's quiet, for once, maybe sensing that he doesn't want to talk and being respectful of it. Then they get to the courtyard, and suddenly his moment of respite is over. "Aren't you afraid they've changed?" Zoro is too busy eyeing the scenery, and the tree line for humanrels, to really register the question, huh? Perona crosses her arms and huffs, but for once she isn't floating. There's a range, apparently, for how far her hollows can travel from her body, and Kuraigana to Sabaody is pushing it. You know, changed. 2 years is a long time. And, yeah, it is, but there are some things even time can't touch. They better have changed, or the last 2 years won't mean much. Perona rolls her eyes, and there's a moment of hesitation before she asks the next question. What about Lucy? Zoro starts veering to the left, back out toward the forest. What about her? Perona huffs and yanks his arm back toward her. Honestly, she grouses, and then her expression clears a bit. Aren't you afraid the girl you love will be different than you remember? Zoro flushes, not expecting the frankness. I told you, stop saying that. He never told Perona that he admitted that to himself, but she somehow figured it out anyway. Perona ignores the request though, and claps her hands as her voice screeches up into a register only dogs can hear. You're so cute and dopey when you think about her. Fuck off, he splutters. He is not cute, at all. He's not her freaking bear thing. Perona does that thing where she gets all offended for no discernible reason. Why, you ungrateful little swordsman. You didn't even answer my question. Zoro avoids a boulder. He's fairly certain he's the one that put it there, after fighting with the Mahawk humandrill that one time. What was that? The ghost girl huffs. Aren't you afraid she's different? Nah. Perona raises an eyebrow. You don't think she's changed? I'm sure she has. And he wonders in what ways she's changed, what ways she's different, and he wants to find out. But you're not worried you two won't get along anymore? Stupid question. Why would I be? Perona's fists whirl through the air out of sheer frustration. Because you two are different now than you were before. Geez, are you dumber than rocks, or what? Fuck off. Just answer the question, damn it. Zoro sighs, resigned. He's about to have like 3 weeks of constant exposure to this girl because it will simply take that long to get to Sabaody. Lucis like me. Huh? It's weird, but this isn't something he's ever had to explain before. Lucy lives for her dream. It defines her. As long as she's heading towards Pirate King, I know who she is. Perona doesn't say anything for a moment, which is just plain unusual. He stops, looking at her exasperatedly, and then she flings herself at him, wrapping arms and legs around his waist. You're so cute. Zoro splutters and pushes her off. I can't wait to be rid of you for good. Perona pouts, irritated. Like you'd even find the island if I wasn't going to lead you there. I'd find it fine if people could give decent directions. This proves too much for the girl, and she seems to grow 3 times her size as her temper lifts her when she screams, "You're the problem, moron." Yeah, it's going to be a long trip back. Lucci Chann. It's been 2 years since she heard that voice, but there's only one person who calls her that name with that particular tone. Hancock. Lucy greets, turning toward the sea. Sure enough, the Kuja pirate's familiar ship approaches, the Sea Kings attached to the hull swaying gracefully above the waves. 30 Amazonians wave at her from the deck. Lucy grins and waves back. She's leaving Ruskina for the first time in 2 years. It's the longest she ever wants to stay in one place, and the longest she ever wants to go without human interaction again. It's the longest she wants to be apart from her crew, ever. She's not sure she'll be able to let them out of her sight once they meet up again in the first place, and that goes for certain green-haired boys with swords especially. It takes a week to get to Sabaody from here, and she's already nervous in a terribly giddy sort of way. She can't wait. She wants to see them now. 2 years she's waited, but the next week seems unbearable. The Kuja pirates already have a raft in the water, ready to come pick her up. Lucy can see Hancock in the front, as well as Marguerite and Gloriosa. Lucy turns the hat in her hand, flipping it between her fingers. She's missed this hat, even though it was her own choice to take it off. It doesn't feel right to put it on now, though. Not on this island. Ruskina is her place of growth, of training, of healing and longing. It was purgatory, in one way, and recovery from the crucible of Marineford in another. It's not a place where she can wear this hat, not when it carries every promise she's ever made in its weave, and Ruskina saw her weakness and burned it from her. She's ready, very ready, to leave. But she won't deny the place has grown on her a bit. She likes its unpredictability. Lucy Chann. Hancock sings. Gloriosa gives her an exasperated look while Marguerite tries to compensate for the way the pirate empress wriggles in the boat. Lucy San, we brought food. Hancock sure does know how to get Lucy's attention. Lucy loves Mito meat variety here after 2 straight years of Jungle Beast. She's literally had dreams about Sanji's pork chops that made her cry. Thanks, Hancock. Lucy responds. The little boat is approaching an outcropping on the island, which is deep enough at mid-tide to avoid the rocky shoals below. Lucy turns to the island one last time, spotting the animals she'd tamed as they peek between the massive tree trunks. She can feel a dozen of the apex predators on the island watching as well, wary of her and the other humans. Actually, Lucy supposes she's the apex predator now. Lucy's going to miss this island, in a weird sort of way. She likes the unpredictability of it. Likes how she never knows what's going to happen the next morning, and 2 years went by faster than she ever thought it would. But Lucy is so ready to leave. She turns to the white tree that provided safe harbor to her so many nights when she was sick or injured, and couldn't protect herself, and she smiles. "Thank you for making me stronger." The island says nothing in response, but there's a strange sort of shift in the air that makes Lucy think something hurt her anyway. But that's the only goodbye she'll ever give. Lucy turns back to the sea, and runs down the outcropping of rock just as Marguerite is gathering the rope to tie it off, and leaps across the 30-meter wide gap with a laugh on her lips. Gloriosa shrieks in surprise and Hancock and Marguerite squeal in concern, but Lucy lands easily, even gracefully, in the little boat. "That was unnecessary, Lucy-san," Gloriosa scolds, leaning on her staff with a withered hand over her chest. Lucy just grins at her. "Sorry for scaring you, Granny Nyan." "Lucy-chan." Hancock squeals, and she lunges forward to wrap Lucy in a hug. Lucy allows it, Hancock bending nearly in half to press Lucy against her. It's the first time she's seen the other woman in 2 years, since Rayleigh handled all the Kuja pirates' visits, and it's nice to see her again. "Hi Hancock, Marguerite," she adds, waving at the other girl from under the pirate empress' shoulders. "Nice to see you again, Lucy-san," Marguerite agrees. There will be time for reunions later, Gloriosa decides, eyeing how Hancock had yet to release Lucy. "We'll be late if we don't leave soon." That had Lucy wriggling out of the taller woman's grip. "We can't be late. My nakama are meeting up soon. And Lucy will be damned if she waits any longer than necessary." Hancock pouts a little, but claps her hands after a moment. "Oh yes, I have a gift for you, Lucy-chan." "A gift?" Lucy asks, a bit surprised. Marguerite follows the implicit orders and maneuvers the little boat away from the shore, back toward the bigger seafaring ship. Lucy grins a little at the rowboat, though, because it's not much smaller than the one she and Zoro set sail on back in Shell's town. The adventure is starting again. It's high time to sail forth to new seas ahead. "I'm not telling," Hancock replies cheerfully, clapping once. Lucy pouts at her. "Please?" Hancock blinks, blushes, and then waves nervously. "No, no, no, Lucy-chan. I'll show you on the ship." Lucy shrugs. "Okay." It doesn't take long to get to the Kuja ship, and Lucy is quickly greeted by many enthusiastic Amazonians, all of whom immediately start pinching and pulling any available skin within reach. Lucy finds their fascination with her rubber abilities kind of weird, but not uncomfortable, and lets them do as they please. Hancock, however, is displeased by the attention. "Set sail for Sabaody," she orders, looking formidable with her fists clenched on silk-covered hips. "All hands on deck." The women on deck give mutual dissatisfied hums, but scramble to comply with the orders. Hancock preens a little, then takes Lucy's arm to guide her upstairs to her cabin. On the way, Lucy recalls how she cried here as she left Marineford, horrified at her own actions and yet not regretting them. It seems an age ago and yet not so long. It was worth it. She was right, so right, to wait, train, and grow. Lucy is stronger now, and she knows she'd never have gotten here without Rayleigh's constant attention to guide her. 2 years is a small price to pay for the guarantee that the events at Sabaody will never repeat themselves again. "Here, Lucy-chan," Hancock hums, swaying over to her with a purple box with a blue ribbon around it in hand. "For you, a congratulations present for completing your training." Lucy grins up at her friend, and accepts the box. "Oh, thanks Hancock." Unthinkingly, she shakes it a few times, curious. Stuff inside moves around a bit, but it doesn't sound hard or fragile or anything weird. Lucy slides the ribbon off, and rips the top off to see. Red fabric. Underneath that is some denim, and that might be black leather. "It's clothes?" Lucy asks curiously, maybe a bit eagerly. The clothes she was wearing when she arrived at Ruskina 2 years ago have long since disintegrated. At first Rayleigh kept asking Hancock to send clothes with every food shipment, but she destroyed them almost instantly, and basically resorted to using bandages and tree leaves to cover her thankfully modest bust, and a few sturdy pairs of denim shorts. In fact, that's what Lucy's wearing now. Although, admittedly, she was walking around the island shirtless there for a week or two, after she ran out of bandages and felt too lazy to weave more tree leaves together when no one was going to see. She pulls out the red fabric. It's similar to her old red plaid top, covering only her bust, but this one is a solid colored red, and has long, flared sleeves that will end just below her elbow. More confusingly, it doesn't have any buttons or lengths of fabric to tie in the front. There's a strip of black leather sewn into the inside edge. Lucy frowns at it, a little unsure, but then she sees the next item in the box. It's a black leather bust strap, 6 inches wide and laced in the front. It's not a corset. There are no ribs in it, and Lucy is fairly certain it's not meant to shape anything, just offer protection and maybe a little stability and cover the important bits. She's never worn anything like this. She barely even wore a bra before, which gave Nami fits and made Robin laugh, and occasionally earned her hopeful glances from Sanji when she stretched in a non-rubber sort of way, popping her spine. Lucy sends Hancock a look, raising her eyebrow in question. To her surprise, the Shichibukai's expression is solemn, and a bit fiercer than it was. In our culture, it is traditional to display scars earned through great tribulation, once they have been overcome. Hancock lays one pale, long-fingered hand across her chest. I thought you might wish to do the same. Oh, that's why the jacket won't tie or close. It's why the leather strap will lace over her sternum, exposing the shiny red scar tissue. For all that Lucy doesn't remember receiving it, Akainu dealt it after she lost consciousness. Lucy has always associated it with Ace, and his loss. Maybe now she can wear it as a reminder to the world instead of just herself. You tried to knock me down, you failed, and made me stronger. Lucy can understand why the Amazons might hold that tradition. She nods to Hancock, a bit solemn. I do. Thanks. She shuffles the clothes a bit, trying to see what the next item is. Sturdy denim shorts, exactly like the ones she usually wears. Good thing, too, since her current pair are on their last legs. Lucy is about to thank her friend for the new outfit and go change into it, but then she realizes there's one last item in the bottom of the box. Frowning, she reaches in and pulls it out. It's a fishing net, but Lucy's fairly sure it was never meant to be used for fishing. It's woven from gray cord so soft it feels like silk, and it's not particularly waxy, like a real net dipped in resin is. There are some things woven into the knots here and there. A few colorful seashells, some pretty glass trinkets Lucy has seen the Amazonians wear sometimes. Woven through one side is a canary yellow sash, maybe forced double the length of the net it's attached to. What? Lucy asks, a bit lost, and looks to Hancock for help. It's a skirt, Hancock declares proudly, looking a little smug. I told you I'd have one made for you. Remember? It's not like the one you tried then, but I thought you'd like this better. Lucy blinks, recalling the days spent on the marine ship to impel down, how Hancock gave her a skirt to try on that was bright yellow but much too big, and how Lucy thought a skirt might be nice if she wasn't such a fighter. But you gave me shorts. It's a cover-up, Hancock explains, approaching matter-of-factly and taking the skirt from Lucy, holding out the ends. She deftly lifts it over Lucy's head, and catches her around the hips with it, over Lucy's shorts. See, you tie it off to the side, just like so. Hancock weaves a simple knot over Lucy's left hip with the yellow sash. The net hangs off to her right, the edge tickling her knee and a few of the seashells clinking against each other softly when she moved. And Viola. Fashion and function, Hancock declares proudly. I know how important that is to you. Lucy isn't actually sure what to think. She's only ever worn a skirt one time. She hasn't had the urge to do so again. Maybe a bit ungratefully, she blinks stupidly at Hancock. Thankfully, the pirate empress seems to have expected such a reaction, because she waves an imperious hand in front of her face, as if dismissing the concern. I know you don't wear skirts, but Lucy-chan, Hancock tells her seriously, you're a woman. One who is going to be pirate king. You should own your femininity, in whatever way you see fit. The rest of the world won't let you forget, after all. The words have a vaguely bitter tinge to them. Lucy opens her mouth to speak, maybe to comfort Hancock. But her friend beats her to it. Just, try it. The whole outfit. There's a mirror over there. If you don't like it, I'll repurpose the sash to a belt for you, okay? I'll be over there. Hancock hooks a thumb to the adjoining room Lucy shares with her. And Lucy, figuring she owes Hancock at least that much, smiles, okay. When Hancock is out of sight, she dons the clothing, even swapping out the old shorts for the new ones. The lacing on the leather bust strap takes a minute to figure out, but it goes on easily enough. Finally, she dons the red jacket. It's made of thick, sturdy cotton, and on Lucy it ends maybe 2 inches above her waist and just below the black leather. Finally, she readjusts the net skirt, cover-up, whatever thing, uncertain of the way it hangs off of her. As a kid she was liable to get caught on the most random things whenever she wore loose clothing. She kind of doubts things have changed that much, regarding her own self-awareness. A net just seems like asking for trouble, and Luce is still not all that certain she wants to wear a skirt at all. But she'll at least try it. That way she can tell Hancock thanks but no thanks, and there'll be no hard feelings. Hopefully. Sometimes with Hancock it's hard to tell. Feet in her trusty sandals, Lucy clops over to the full-length mirror and stops in front of it. Her breath catches. In part, this is because it's the first time she's seen herself in over 2 years, and while she's never been particularly vain, she usually knows what she looks like. Luce's face is thinner, maybe from maturity, or maybe from training. Her tan is deep, like usual, but she has more freckles than she used to, especially on her more prominent cheekbones. Her hair is longer than it's ever been, and although she'd noticed that she hadn't realized, it's well past her shoulders now. To get it back to her usual length she'd have to cut more than she would keep. She'll have to deal with that later, she doesn't like it long at all. It's the first time she's seen the scar in full. It's massive, taking center stage on her chest, and crisscrossing her breasts in an X shape. It looks ugly. It looks dangerous. It looks like the memories it represents. Lucy's glad Hancock picked clothes that would let her show it off. The weirdest thing, however, is the net. It's not exactly a skirt, but it gives off a similar effect, swishing when Lucy sways and lengthening the angle of her legs. It drapes around her hips asymmetrically, the top of it spread around the sash and the bottom gathering around her right knee. It's loose enough that it won't hinder her movements. It's flexible and sturdy enough that it won't rip, and the yellow sash hangs down the outer curve of her left thigh, completing the effect. It makes her feel feminine. Lucy's never felt feminine before. It doesn't feel weak. She looks like an adult, like a pirate, like a. Lucy reaches for the straw hat, waiting patiently beside the gift box. She twirls it in her hand once, rolling it up her arm, and presses the worn, familiar straw to her hair. Yeah, this is good. She looks like, you look like a king, Hancock says smugly from behind her. Lucy's still so surprised at her reflection she doesn't even look up at her friend. A pirate king, that is. Lucy squares her shoulders, widens her stance. She's ready. Yeah, she agrees, I do.